Och, I thought all the world, far and near, had heard of King O'Toole. Well, but the darkness of mankind is untolerable. Well, sir, you must know, as you didn't hear it afore, that there was a king, called King O'Toole, who was a fine old king in the old ancient times, long ago, and it was he that owned the churches in the early days. The king, you see, was the right sort, he was the real boy, and loved sport as he loved his life, and hunting in particular, and from the rising o' the sun, up he got, and away he went over the mountains after the deer, and fine times they were. Well, it was all mighty good, as long as the king had his health, but you see, in the course of time the king grew old, by raison he was stiff in his limbs, and when he got stricken in years, his heart failed him and he was lost entirely for want o' diversion, because he couldn't go a-hunting no longer, and, by dad, the poor king was obliged at last to get a goose to divert him. Oh, you may laugh, if you like, but it's truth I'm telling you, and the way the goose diverted him was this-a-way. You see, the goose used to swim across the lake, and go diving for trout and catch fish on a Friday for the king, and flew every other day round about the lake, diverting the poor king. All went on mighty well until, by dad, the goose got stricken in years like her master, and couldn't divert him no longer. And then it was that the poor king was lost entirely. The king was walkin' one mornin' by the edge of the lake, lamentin' his cruel fate, and thinking of drowning himself, that could get no diversion in life, when all of a sudden, turning round the corner, whom should he meet but a mighty decent young man coming up to him. Illustration. God save you, says the king to the young man. God save you kindly, King O'Toole, says the young man. True for you, says the king. I am King O'Toole, says he, prince and plenipotentiary of these parts, says he, but how came ye to know that, says he. Oh, never mind, says Saint Kavin. You see it was Saint Kavin, sure enough the saint himself in disguise, and nobody else. Oh, never mind, says he, I know more than that. May I make bold to ask how is your goose, King O'Toole? Says he. Blurrenagers, how came ye to know about my goose, says the king. Oh, no matter, I was given to understand it, says Saint Kavin. After some more talk the king says, what are you? I'm an honest man, says Saint Kavin. Well, honest man, says the king, and how is it you make your money? So AC? By making old things as good as new, says Saint Kavin. Is it a tinker you are, says the king. No, says the saint, I'm no tinker by trade, King O'Toole, I've a better trade than a tinker, says he. What would you say, says he, if I made your old goose as good as new? My dear, at the word of making his goose as good as new, you'd think the poor old king's eyes were ready to jump out of his head. With that, the king whistled, and down came the poor goose, just like a hound, waddling up to the poor cripple, her master, and as like him as two peas. The minute the saint clapped his eyes on the goose, I'll do the job for you, says he, King O'Toole. By underscore Jaminy underscore, says King O'Toole, if you do, I'll say you're the cleverest fellow in the 7 parishes. Oh, by dad, says Saint Kavin, you must say more nor that, my horns. Not so soft all out, says he, as to repair your old goose for nothing. What'll you gi me if I do the job for you? That's the chat, says Saint Kavin. I'll give you whatever you ask, says the king. Isn't that fair? Divil a fairer, says the saint, that's the way to do business. Now, says he, this is the bargain I'll make with you, King O'Toole. Will you gi me all the ground the goose flies over, the first offer, after I make her as good as new? I will, says the king. You won't go back o' your word, says Saint Kavin. Honor bright, says King O'Toole, holding out his fist. Honor bright, says Saint Kavin, back again, it's a bargain. Come Here, says he to the poor old goose, come here, you unfortunate old cripple, and it's I that'll make you the sporting bird. With that, my dear, he took up the goose by the two wings Chris o' my crossin'. You, says he, markin' her to grace with the blessed sign at the same minute and throwing her up in the air, phew, says he, just givin' her a blast to help her, and with that, my jewel, she took to her heels, flyin' like one o' the eagles themselves, and cutting as many capers as a swallow before a shower of rain. Well, my dear, it was a beautiful sight to see the king standing with his mouth open, looking at his poor old goose flying as light as a lark, and better than ever she was, and when she lit at his feet, patted her on the head, and underscore mavourneen underscore, says he, but you are the underscore darlint underscore o' the world. Illustration. And what do you say to me, says St. Kavin, for making her the like? By Jabers, says the king, I say nothing beats the art o' man. Barring the bees. And do you say no more nor that, says St. Kavin. And that I'm beholden to you, says the king. But will you gie me all the ground the goose flew over, says St. Kavin. I will, says King O'Toole, and you're welcome to it, says he. Though it's the last acre I have to give. But you'll keep your word true, says the saint. As true as the sun, says the king. It's well for you, King O'Toole, that you said that word, says he. For if you didn't say that word, the divil the bit o' your goose would ever fly again. When the king was as good as his word, St. Kavin was pleased with him, and then it was that he made himself known to the king. And, says he, King O'Toole, you're a decent man, for I only came here to try you. You don't know me, says he, because I'm disguised. Musha. Then, says the king, who are you? I'm St. Kavin, said the saint, blessing himself. Oh, Queen of Heaven, says the king, making the sign of the cross between his eyes, and falling down on his knees before the saint, is it the great St. Kavin, says he, that I've been discoursing all this time without knowing it, says he, all as one as if he was a lump of a underscore gusson underscore, and so you're a saint, says the king. I am, says St. Kavin. By Jabers, I thought I was only talking to a decent boy, says the king. Well, you know the difference now, says the saint. I'm St. Kavin, says he, the greatest of all the saints. And so the king had his goose as good as new, to divert him as long as he lived, and the saint supported him after he came into his property. As I told you, until the day of his death, and that was soon after. For the poor goose thought he was catching a trout one Friday, but, my jewel, it was a mistake he made, and instead of a trout, it was a thieving horse eel, and instead of the goose killing a trout for the king's supper by dad, the eel killed the king's goose, and small blame to him, but he didn't ate her, because he darn't ate what St. Kavin had laid his blessed hands on. Shortly after the birth of Kilhutch, the son of King Killith, his mother died. Before her death she charged the king that he should not take a wife again until he saw a briar with 2 blossoms upon her grave, and the king sent every morning to see if anything were growing thereon. After many years the briar appeared, and he took to wife the widow of King Doged. She foretold to her stepson, Kilhutch, that it was his destiny to marry a maiden named Olwen, or none other, and he, at his father's bidding, went to the court of his cousin, King Arthur, to ask as a boon the hand of the maiden. He rode upon a grey steed with shell-formed hoofs, having a bridle of linked gold, and a saddle also of gold. In his hand were 2 spears of silver, well tempered, headed with steel, of an edge to wound the wind and cause blood to flow, and swifter than the fall of the dewdrop from the blade of reed grass upon the earth when the dew of June is at its heaviest. A gold-hilted sword was on his thigh, and the blade was of gold, having inlaid upon it a cross of the hue of the lightning of heaven. 2 brindled White-breasted greyhounds, with strong collars of rubies, sported round him, and his courser cast up 4 sods with its 4 hoofs like 4 swallows about his head. Upon the steed was a 4-cornered cloth of purple, and an apple of gold was at each corner. Precious gold was upon the stirrups and shoes, and the blade of grass bent not beneath them, so light was the courser's tread as he went towards the gate of King Arthur's palace. Arthur received him with great ceremony, and asked him to remain at the palace, but the youth replied that he came not to consume meat and drink, but to ask a boon of the king. Then said Arthur, since thou wilt not remain here, chieftain, thou shalt receive the boon, whatsoever thy tongue may name, as far as the wind dries and the rain moistens, and the sun revolves, and the sea encircles, and the earth extends, save only my ships and my mantle, my sword, my lance, my shield, my dagger, and Guinevere my wife. So Kilhuch craved of him the hand of Olwen, the daughter of Ysbaddaden Pancor, and also asked the favour and aid of all Arthur's court. Then said Arthur, O chieftain, I have never heard of the maiden of whom thou speakest, nor of her kindred, but I will gladly send messengers in search of her. And the youth said, I will willingly grant from this night to that at the end of the year to do so. Then Arthur sent messengers to every land within his dominions to seek for the maiden, and at the end of the year Arthur's messengers returned without having gained any knowledge or information concerning Olwen more than on the first day. Then said Kilhuch, every one has received his boon, and I yet lack mine. I will depart and bear away thy honor with me. Then said Kay, rash chieftain, dost thou reproach Arthur? Go with us, and we will not part until thou dost either confess that the maiden exists not in the world, or until we obtain her. Thereupon Kay rose up. Kay had this peculiarity, that his breath lasted 9 nights and 9 days under water, and he could exist 9 nights and 9 days without sleep. A wound from Kay's sword no physician could heal. Very subtle was Kay. When it pleased him he could render himself as tall as the highest tree in the forest. And he had another peculiarity so great was the heat of his nature, that, when it rained hardest, whatever he carried remained dry for a handbreadth above and a handbreadth below his hand, and when his companions were coldest, it was to them as fuel with which to light their fire. And Arthur called Bedwer, who never shrank from any enterprise upon which Kay was bound. None was equal to him in swiftness throughout this island except Arthur and Drychl Kipther. And although he was one-handed, 3 warriors could not shed blood faster than he on the field of battle. Another property he had, his lance would produce a wound equal to 9 opposing lances. And Arthur called to Kinthalig the guide. Go thou upon this expedition with the chieftain. For as good a guide was he in a land which he had never seen as he was in his own. He called Gwrhyr Gwalstad Ithod, because he knew all tongues. He called Gwalchmai, the son of Gwyr, because he never returned home without achieving the adventure of which he went in quest. He was the best of footmen and the best of knights. He was nephew to Arthur, the son of his sister, and his cousin. And Arthur called Men, the son of Tyrgwaith, in order that if they went into a savage country, he might cast a charm and an illusion over them, so that none might see them whilst they could see every one. They journeyed on till they came to a vast open plain, wherein they saw a great castle, which was the fairest in the world. But so far away was it that at night it seemed no nearer, and they scarcely reached it on the 3rd day. When they came before the castle they beheld a vast flock of sheep, boundless and without end. They told their errand to the herdsman, who endeavored to dissuade them, since none who had come thither on that quest had returned alive. They gave to him a gold ring, which he conveyed to his wife, telling her who the visitors were. On the approach of the latter, she ran out with joy to greet them, and sought to throw her arms about their necks. But Kay, snatching a billet out of the pile, placed the log between her two hands, and she squeezed it so that it became a twisted coil. "O woman," said Kay, "if thou hadst squeezed me thus, none could ever again have set their affections on me. Evil love were this." They entered the house, and after meat she told them that the maiden Olwen came there every Saturday to wash. They pledged their faith that they would not harm her, and a message was sent to her. So Olwen came, clothed in a robe of flame-colored silk, and with a collar of ruddy gold, in which were emeralds and rubies, about her neck. More golden was her hair than the flower of the broom, and her skin was whiter than the foam of the wave, and fairer were her hands and her fingers than the blossoms of the wood anemone amidst the spray of the meadow fountain. Brighter were her glances than those of a falcon, her bosom was more snowy than the breast of the white swan, her cheek redder than the reddest roses. Whoso beheld was filled with her love. 4. White trefoils sprang up wherever she trod, and therefore was she called Olwen. Then Kilhuch, sitting beside her on a bench, told her his love, and she said that he would win her as his bride if he granted whatever her father asked. Accordingly they went up to the castle and laid their request before him. "Raise up the forks beneath my two eyebrows which have fallen over my eyes," said Ysbaddaden Penkor, "that I may see the fashion of my son-in-law." They did so, and he promised them an answer on the morrow. But as they were going forth, Ysbaddaden seized one of the 3 poisoned darts that lay beside him and threw it back after them. And Bedwyr caught it and flung it back, wounding Ysbaddaden in the knee. Then said he, "Accursed ungentle son-in-law, truly I shall ever walk the worse for his rudeness. This poisoned iron pains me like the bite of a gadfly. Cursed be the smith who forged it, and the anvil whereon it was wrought." Illustration. The knights rested in the house of Custon and the herdsman, but the next day at dawn they returned to the castle and renewed their request. Ysbaddaden said it was necessary that he should consult Olwen's 4 great-grandmothers and her 4 great-grandsires. The knights again withdrew, and as they were going he took the second dart and cast it after them. But men caught it and flung it back, piercing Ysbaddaden's breast with it, so that it came out at the small of his back. "Accursed ungentle son-in-law, truly," says he, "the hard iron pains me like the bite of a horseleech. Cursed be the hearth whereon it was heated. Henceforth whenever I go up a hill, I shall have a scant in my breath and a pain in my chest." On the 3rd day the knights returned once more to the palace, and Ysbaddaden took the 3rd dart and cast it at them. But Kilhuch caught it and threw it vigorously, and wounded him through the eyeball, so that the dart came out at the back of his head. "Accursed ungentle son-in-law, truly. As long as I remain alive my eyesight will be the worse. Whenever I go against the wind my eyes will water, and peradventure my head will burn, and I shall have a giddiness every new moon. Cursed be the fire in which it was forged. Like the bite of a mad dog is the stroke of this poisoned iron." And they went to meet. Said Ysbaddaden Penkor, "Is it thou that seekest my daughter?" "It is I," answered Kilhuch. "I must have thy pledge that thou wilt not do towards me otherwise. Then is just, and when I have gotten that which I shall name, my daughter thou shalt have." "I promise thee that willingly," said Kilhuch, "name what thou wilt." "I will do so," said he. "Throughout the world there is not a comb or scissors with which I can arrange my hair, on account of its rankness, except the comb and scissors that are between the 2 ears of Turch Truth, the son of Prince Terd. He will not give them of his own free will, and thou wilt not be able to compel him. It will be easy for me to compass this, although thou mayest think that it will not be easy. Though thou get this, there is yet that which thou wilt not get. It will not be possible to hunt Turch Truth without Drudwyn the whelp of Grade, the son of Airy, and know that throughout the world there is not a huntsman who can hunt with this dog, except Mabon the son of Modron. He was taken from his mother when 3 nights old, and it is not known where he is now, nor whether he is living or dead. It will be easy for me to compass this, although thou mayest think that it will not be easy. Though thou get this, there is yet that which thou wilt not get. Thou wilt not get Mabon, for it is not known where he is, unless thou find Idol, his kinsman in blood, the son of Air. For it would be useless to seek for him. He is his cousin. It will be easy for me to compass this, although thou mayest think that it will not be easy. Horses shall I have, and chivalry, and my lord and kinsman Arthur will obtain for me all these things. And I shall gain thy daughter, and thou shalt lose thy life. Go forward. And thou shalt not be chargeable for food or raiment for my daughter while thou art seeking these things, and when thou hast compassed all these marvels, thou shalt have my daughter for wife. Now, when they told Arthur how they had sped, Arthur said, Which of these marvels will it be best for us to seek first? It will be best, said they, to seek Mabon the son of Modron, and he will not be found unless we first find Idol, the son of Air, his kinsman. Then Arthur rose up, and the warriors of the islands of Britain with him, to seek for Idol, and they proceeded until they came before the castle of Glivi, where Idol was imprisoned. Glivi stood on the summit of his castle, and said, Arthur, what requirest thou of me, since nothing remains to me in this fortress? And I have neither joy nor pleasure in it, neither wheat nor oats? Said Arthur, Not to injure thee came I hither, but to seek for the prisoner that is with thee. I will give thee my prisoner, though I had not thought to give him up to any one, and therewith shalt thou have my support and my aid. His followers then said unto Arthur, Lord, go thou home, thou canst not proceed with thy host in quest of such small adventures as these. Then said Arthur, It were well for thee, Gwrhyr Gwalstod to go upon this quest, for thou knowest all languages, and art familiar with those of the birds and the beasts. Go, Idol, likewise with my men in search of thy cousin. And as for you, Kay and Bedwer, I have hope of whatever adventure ye are in quest of, that ye will achieve it. Achieve ye this adventure for me. These went forward until they came to the Ousel of Silgri, and Gwrhyr adjured her for the sake of heaven, saying, Tell me if thou knowest aught of Mabon, the son of Modron, who was taken when 3 nights old from between his mother and the wall. And the Ousel answered, When I first came here there was a smith's anvil in this place, and I was then a young bird, and from that time no work has been done upon it, save the pecking of my beak every evening, and now there is not so much as the size of a nut remaining thereof, yet the vengeance of heaven be upon me if during all that time I have ever heard of the man for whom you inquire. Nevertheless, there is a race of animals who were formed before me, and I will be your guide to them. So they proceeded to the place where was the stag of Redinvra. Stag of Redinvra, behold we are come to thee, an embassy from Arthur. For we have not heard of any animal older than thou. Say, knowest thou aught of Mabon? The stag said, When first I came hither, there was a plain all around me, without any trees save one oak sapling, which grew up to be an oak with 100 branches. And that oak has since perished, so that now nothing remains of it but the withered stump, and from that day to this I have been here, yet have I never heard of the man for whom you inquire. Nevertheless, I will be your guide to the place where there is an animal which was formed before I was. So they proceeded to the place where was the owl of Cún Colwood, to inquire of him concerning Mabon. And the owl said, If I knew I would tell you. When first I came hither, the wide valley you see was a wooded glen. and a race of men came and rooted it up. And there grew there a second wood, and this wood is the third. My wings, are they not withered stumps? Yet all this time, even until today, I have never heard of the man for whom you inquire. Nevertheless, I will be the guide of Arthur's embassy until you come to the place where is the oldest animal in this world, and the one who has traveled most, the eagle of Gwern. When they came to the eagle, Gwrhyr asked it the same question, but it replied, I have been here for a great space of time, and when I first came hither there was a rock here, from the top of which I pecked at the stars every evening, and now it is not so much as a span high. From that day to this I have been here, and I have never heard of the man for whom you inquire, except once when I went in search of food as far as Llyn. And when I came there, I stuck my talons into a salmon, thinking he would serve me as food for a long time. But he drew me into the deep, and I was scarcely able to escape from him. After that I went with my whole kindred to attack him, and to try to destroy him, but he sent messengers and made peace with me, and came and besought me to take 50 fish spears out of his back. Unless he know something of him whom you seek, I cannot tell you who may. However, I will guide you to the place where he is. So they went thither, and the eagle said, Salmon of Llyn, I have come to thee with an embassy from Arthur to ask thee if thou knowest aught concerning Mabon, the son of Modron, who was taken away at 3 nights old from between his mother and the wall. And the salmon answered, As much as I know I will tell thee. With every tide I go along the river upwards, until I come near to the walls of Gloucester, and there have I found such wrong as I never found elsewhere, and to the end that ye may give credence thereto, let one of you go thither upon each of my 2 shoulders. So K and Gwrhyr went upon his shoulders, and they proceeded till they came to the wall of the prison, and they heard a great wailing and lamenting from the dungeon. Said Gwrhyr, Who is it that laments in this house of stone? And the voice replied, Alas, it is Mabon, the son of Modron, who is here imprisoned. Then they returned and told Arthur, who, summoning his warriors, attacked the castle. Illustration, Gwrhyr and Idol talk with the eagle of Gwern. And whilst the fight was going on, Kay and Bedwyr, mounting on the shoulders of the fish, broke into the dungeon, and brought away with them Mabon, the son of Modron. Then Arthur summoned unto him all the warriors that were in the 3 islands of Britain and in the 3 islands adjacent, and he went as far as Esgir Irvel in Ireland, where the boar Truth was with his 7 young pigs. And the dogs were let loose upon him from all sides. But he wasted the 5th part of Ireland, and then set forth through the sea to Wales. Arthur and his hosts, and his horses, and his dogs followed hard after him. But ever and a while the boar made a stand. And many a champion of Arthur's did he slay. Throughout all Wales did Arthur follow him, and one by one the young pigs were killed. At length, when he would fain have crossed the Severn, and escaped into Cornwall, Mabon, the son of Modron, came up with him, and Arthur fell upon him, together with the champions of Britain. On the one side, Mabon, the son of Modron, spurred his steed and snatched his razor from him, whilst Kay came up with him on the other side and took from him the scissors. But, before they could obtain the comb, he had regained the ground with his feet, and from the moment that he reached the shore, neither dog nor man nor horse could overtake him until he came to Cornwall. There Arthur and his host followed in his track until they overtook him in Cornwall. Hard had been their trouble before, but it was child's play to what they met in seeking the comb. Win it they did, and the boar Truth they hunted into the deep sea. And it was never known whither he went. Then Kilhuch set forward, and as many as wished ill to Ysbaddaden, Pancor. And they took the marvels with them to his court. and caw of North Britain came and shaved his beard, skin and flesh clean off too. The very bone from ear to ear. Art thou shaved, man? Said Kilhuch. I am shaved, answered he. Is thy daughter mine now? She is thine, but therefore needst thou not thank me, but Arthur who hath accomplished this for thee. By my free will thou shouldst never have had her, for with her I lose my life. Then Goreu, the son of Custennin, seized him by the hair of his head, and dragged him after him to the keep, and cut off his head and placed it on a stake on the citadel. Thereafter the hosts of Arthur dispersed themselves each man to his own country. Thus did Kilhuch, son of Celephon, win to wife Olwen, the daughter of Espathadon Pencor. The Shianganan was born in the morning, named at noon, and went in the evening to ask his daughter of the king of Erin. I will give you my daughter in marriage, said the king of Erin. You won't get her, though, unless you go and bring me back the tidings that I want, and tell me what it is that put a stop to the laughing of the Gruagach Gaire, who before this laughed always, and laughed so loud that the whole world heard him. There are 12 iron spikes out here in the garden behind my castle. On 11 of the spikes are the heads of king's sons who came seeking my daughter in marriage, and all of them went away to get the knowledge I wanted. Not one was able to get it, and tell me what stopped the Gruagach Gaire from laughing. I took the heads off them all when they came back without the tidings for which they went, and I'm greatly in dread that your head'll be on the 12th spike, for I'll do the same to you that I did to the 11 king's sons unless you tell what put a stop to the laughing of the Gruagach. The Shianganan made no answer, but left the king and pushed away. To know could he find why the Gruagach was silent. He took a glen at a step, a hill at a leap, and travelled all day till evening. Then he came to a house. The master of the house asked him what sort was he, and he said, a young man looking for hire. Well, said the master of the house, I was going tomorrow to look for a man to mind my cows. If you'll work for me, you'll have a good place, the best food a man could have to eat in this world, and a soft bed to lie on. The Shianganan took service, and ate his supper. Then the master of the house said, I am the Gruagach Gaire, now that you are my man, and have eaten your supper, you'll have a bed of silk to sleep on. Next morning after breakfast the Gruagach said to the Shianganan, Go out now and loosen my 5 golden cows and my bull without horns, and drive them to pasture, but when you have them out on the grass, be careful you don't let them go near the land of the giant. The new cowboy drove the cattle to pasture, and when near the land of the giant, he saw it was covered with woods and surrounded by a high wall. He went up, put his back against the wall, and threw in a great stretch of it, then he went inside and threw out another great stretch of the wall, and put the 5 golden cows and the bull without horns on the land of the giant. Then he climbed a tree, ate the sweet apples himself, and threw the sour ones down to the cattle of the Gruagach Gaire. Soon a great crashing was heard in the woods, the noise of young trees bending, and old trees breaking. The cowboy looked around, and saw a 5-headed giant pushing through the trees, and soon he was before him. Poor miserable creature, said the giant, but weren't you impudent to come to my land and trouble me in this way? You're too big for one bite, and too small for 2. I don't know what to do but tear you to pieces. You nasty brute, said the cowboy, coming down to him from the tree. 'Tis little I care for you, and then they went at each other. So great was the noise between them that there was nothing in the world but what was looking on and listening to the combat. They fought till late in the afternoon when the giant was getting the upper hand, and then the cowboy thought that if the giant should kill him, his father and mother would never find him or set eyes on him again, and he would never get the daughter of the king of Erin. The heart in his body grew strong at this thought. He sprang on the giant. And with the first squeeze and thrust he put him to his knees in the hard ground, with the second thrust to his waist, and with the third to his shoulders. "I have you at last, you're done for now," said the cowboy. Then he took out his knife, cut the 5 heads off the giant, and when he had them off he cut out the tongues and threw the heads over the wall. Then he put the tongues in his pocket and drove home the cattle. That evening the Gruagach couldn't find vessels enough in his palace to hold the milk of the 5 golden cows. But when the cowboy was on the way home with the cattle, the son of the king of Tizian came and took the giant's heads and claimed the princess in marriage when the Gruagach Gair should laugh. After supper the cowboy would give no talk to his master, but kept his mind to himself, and went to the bed of silk to sleep. On the morning the cowboy rose before his master, and the first words he said to Gruagach were, "What keeps you from laughing, you who used to laugh so loud that the whole world heard you?" "I'm sorry," said the Gruagach, "that the daughter of the king of Erin sent you here." "If you don't tell me of your own will, I'll make you tell me," said the cowboy, and he put a face on himself that was terrible to look at. And, running through the house like a madman, could find nothing that would give pain enough to the Gruagach but some ropes made of untanned sheepskin hanging on the wall. He took these down, caught the Gruagach, fastened him by the 3 smalls, and tied him so that his little toes were whispering to his ears. When he was in this state the Gruagach said, "I'll tell you what stopped my laughing if you set me free." So the cowboy unbound him, the two sat down together, and the Gruagach said, "I lived in this castle here with my 12 sons. We ate, drank, played cards, and enjoyed ourselves, till one day, when my sons and I were playing, a slender brown hare came rushing in, jumped onto the hearth, tossed up the ashes to the rafters and ran away. On another day he came again, but if he did, we were ready for him, my 12 sons and myself. As soon as he tossed up the ashes and ran off, we made after him, and followed him till nightfall, when he went into a glen. We saw a light before us. I ran on, and came to a house with a great apartment, where there was a man named Yellow Face with 12 daughters, and the hare was tied to the side of the room near the women. There was a large pot over the fire in the room, and a great stork boiling in the pot. The man of the house said to me, "There are bundles of rushes at the end of the room, go there and sit down with your men." He went into the next room and brought out 2 pikes, one of wood, the other of iron, and asked me which of the pikes would I take. I said, "I'll take the iron one," for I thought in my heart that if an attack should come on me, I could defend myself better with the iron than the wooden pike. Yellow Face gave me the iron pike, and the first chance of taking what I could out of the pot on the point of the pike. I got but a small piece of the stork, and the man of the house took all the rest on his wooden pike. We had to fast that night, and when the man and his 12 daughters ate the flesh of the stork, they hurled the bare bones in the faces of my sons and myself. We had to stop all night that way, beaten on the faces by the bones of the stork. Next morning, when we were going away, the man of the house asked me to stay a while, and going into the next room, he brought out 12 loops of iron and one of wood, and said to me, "Put the heads of your 12 sons into the iron loops, or your own head into the wooden one foot," and I said, "I'll put the 12 heads of my sons in the iron loops, and keep my own out of the wooden one." He put the iron loops on the necks of my 12 sons, and put the wooden one on his own neck. Then he snapped the loops one after another, till he took the heads off my 12 sons and threw the heads and bodies out of the house, but he did nothing to hurt his own neck. When he had killed my sons he took hold of me and stripped the skin and flesh from the small of my back down, and when he had done that he took the skin of a black sheep that had been hanging on the wall for 7 years and clapped it on my body in place of my own flesh and skin, and the sheepskin grew on me, and every year since then I shear myself, and every bit of wool I use for the stockings that I wear I clip off my own back. When he had said this, the Gruagach showed the cowboy his back, covered with thick black wool. After what he had seen and heard, the cowboy said, I know now why you don't laugh, and small blame to you. But does that hare come here still? He does indeed, said the Gruagach. Both went to the table to play, and they were not long playing cards when the hare ran in, and before they could stop him he was out again. But the cowboy made after the hare, and the Gruagach after the cowboy. And they ran as fast as ever their legs could carry them till nightfall, and when the hare was entering the castle where the 12 sons of the Gruagach were killed, the cowboy caught him by the 2 hind legs and dashed out his brains against the wall, and the skull of the hare was knocked into the chief room of the castle, and fell at the feet of the master of the place. Who has dared to interfere with my fighting pet? Screamed Yellow Face. I, said the cowboy, and if your pet had had manners, he might be alive now. The cowboy and the Gruagach stood by the fire. A stork was boiling in the pot, as when the Gruagach came the first time. The master of the house went into the next room and brought out an iron and a wooden pike, and asked the cowboy which would he choose. I'll take the wooden one, said the cowboy, and you may keep the iron one for yourself. So he took the wooden one, and going to the pot, brought out on the pike all the stork except a small bite, and he and the Gruagach fell to eating, and they were eating the flesh of the stork all night. The cowboy and the Gruagach were at home in the place that time. In the morning the master of the house went into the next room, took down the 12 iron loops with a wooden one, brought them out, and asked the cowboy which would he take, the 12 iron or the 1 wooden loop. What could I do with the 12 iron ones for myself or my master? I'll take the wooden one. He put it on, and taking the 12 iron loops, put them on the necks of the 12 daughters of the house, then snapped the 12 heads off them, and turning to their father, said, I'll do the same thing to you unless you bring the 12 sons of my master to life, and make them as well and strong as when you took their heads. The master of the house went out and brought the 12 to life again. And when the Gruagach saw all his sons alive and as well as ever, he let a laugh out of himself, and all the eastern world heard the laugh. Then the cowboy said to the Gruagach, It's a bad thing you have done to me, for the daughter of the king of Erin will be married the day after your laugh is heard. Oh. Then we must be there in time, said the Gruagach, and they all made away from the place as fast as ever they could, the cowboy, the Gruagach, and his 12 sons. They hurried on, and when within 3 miles of the king's castle there was such a throng of people that no one could see a step ahead. We must clear a road through this, said the cowboy. Illustration. We must indeed, said the Gruagach, and at it they went, through the people some on one side and some on the other, and soon they had an opening for themselves to the king's castle. As they went in, the daughter of the king of Erin and the son of the king of Tizian were on their knees just going to be married. The cowboy drew his hand on the bridegroom, and gave a blow that sent him spinning till he stopped under a table at the other side of the room. What scoundrel struck that blow? Asked the king of Erin. It was I, said the cowboy. What reason had you to strike the man who won my daughter? It was I who won your daughter, not he, and if you don't believe me, the Gruagach Gaire is here himself. He'll tell you the whole story, from beginning to end, and show you the tongues of the giant. So the Gruagach came up and told the king the whole story, how the Sheangannon had become his cowboy, had guarded the 5 golden cows, and the bull without horns, cut off the heads of the 5-headed giant, killed the wizard hare, and brought his own 12 sons to life. And then, said the Gruagach, he's the only man in the whole World I have ever told why I stopped laughing, and the only one who has ever seen my fleece of wool. When the king of Erin heard what the Gruagach said, and saw the tongues of the giant fitted in the head, he made the Shean Gannon kneel down by his daughter, and they were married on the spot. Then the son of the king of Tizian was thrown into prison, and the next day they put down a great fire, and the deceiver was burnt to ashes. The wedding lasted 9 days, and the last day was better than the first. There was once a poor old fisherman, and one year he was not getting much fish. On a day of days, while he was fishing, there rose a sea maiden at the side of his boat, and she asked him, "Are you getting much fish?" The old man answered and said, "Not I." "What reward would you give me for sending plenty of fish to you?" "ACH," said the old man, "I have not much to spare." "Will you give me the first son you have?" said she. "I would give ye that, were I to have a son," said he. "Then go home, and remember me when your son is 20 years of age, and you yourself will get plenty of fish after this." Everything happened as the sea maiden said, and he himself got plenty of fish, but when the end of the 20 years was nearing, the old man was growing more and more sorrowful and heavy-hearted, while he counted each day as it came. He had rest neither day nor night. The son asked his father one day, "Is anyone troubling you?" The old man said, "Someone is, but that's not to do with you nor anyone else." The lad said, "I must know what it is." His father told him at last how the matter was with him. And the sea maiden, "Let not that put you in any trouble," said the son, "I will not oppose you. You shall not go, my son, though I never get fish any more. If you will not let me go with you, go to the smithy, and let the smith make me a great strong sword, and I will go seek my fortune." His father went to the smithy, and the smith made a doughty sword for him. His father came home with the sword. The lad grasped it and gave it a shake or two, and it flew into 100 splinters. He asked his father to go to the smithy and get him another sword in which there should be twice as much weight, and so his father did, and so likewise it happened to the next sword. It broke in 2 halves. Back went the old man to the smithy, and the smith made a great sword, it's like he never made before. "There's thy sword for thee," said the smith, "and the fist must be good that plays this blade." The old man gave the sword to his son, he gave it a shake or two. "This will do," said he. "It's high time now to travel on my way." On the next morning he put a saddle on a black horse that his father had, and he took the world for his pillow. When he went on a bit, he fell in with the carcass of a sheep beside the road. And there were a great black dog, a falcon, and an otter, and they were quarreling over the spoil. So they asked him to divide it for them. He came down off the horse and he divided the carcass amongst the 3 shares to the dog, 2 shares to the otter, and a share to the falcon. "For this," said the dog, "if swiftness of foot or sharpness of tooth will give thee aid, mind me, and I will be at thy side." Said the otter, "If the swimming of foot on the ground of a pool will loose thee, mind me, and I will be at thy side." Said the falcon, "If hardship comes on thee, where swiftness of wing or crook of claw will do good, mind me, and I will be at thy side." On this he went onward till he reached a king's house, and he took service to be a herd, and his wages were to be according to the milk of the cattle. He went away with the cattle, and the grazing was but bare. In the evening when he took them home they had not much milk. The place was so bare, and his meat and drink was but spare that night. On the next day he went on further with them, and at last he came to a place exceedingly grassy, in a green glen, of which he never saw the like. But about the time when he should drive the cattle homewards, who should he see coming but a great giant with a sword in his hand? Hi! Ho! Echogarach, says the giant. Those cattle are mine, they are on my land, and a dead man art thou. I say not that, says the herd. There is no knowing, but that may be easier to say than to do. He drew the great clean-sweeping sword, and he neared the giant. The herd drew back his sword, and the head was off the giant in a twinkling. He leaped on the black horse, and he went to look for the giant's house. In went the herd, and that's the place where there was money in plenty, and dresses of each kind in the wardrobe with gold and silver, and each thing finer than the other. At the mouth of night he took himself to the king's house, but he took not a thing from the giant's house. And when the cattle were milked this night their underscore was underscore milk. He got good feeding this night, meat and drink without stint. And the king was hugely pleased that he had caught such a herd. He went on for a time in this way, but at last the glen grew bare of grass, and the grazing was not so good. So he thought he would go a little further forward in on the giant's land, and he sees a great park of grass. He returned for the cattle, and he put them into the park. They were but a short time grazing in the park when a great wild giant came full of rage and madness. Hi! Ha! Hagarake, said the giant. It is a drink of thy blood that will quench my thirst this night. There is no knowing, said the herd, but that's easier to say than to do. And at each other went the men. Their underscore was shaking of blades. At length and at last it seemed as if the giant would get the victory over the herd. Then he called on the dog, and with one spring the black dog caught the giant by the neck, and swiftly the herd struck off his head. He went home very tired this night, but it's a wonder if the king's cattle had not milk. The whole family was delighted that they had got such a herd. Next day he betakes himself to the castle. When he reached the door, a little flattering carlin met him standing in the door. All hail and good luck to thee, fisher's son, 'tis I myself am pleased to see thee. Great is the honor for this kingdom, for thy like to be come into it. Thy coming in is fame for this little bothy. Go in first, honor to the gentles, go on, and take breath in before me, thou crone. I like not flattery out of doors, go in and let's hear thy speech. In went the crone, and when her back was to him he drew his sword and whips her head off, but the sword flew out of his hand. And swift the crone gripped her head with both hands, and puts it on her neck as it was before. The dog sprang on the crone, and she struck the generous dog with the club of magic, and there he lay. But the herd struggled for a hold of the club of magic, and with one blow on the top of the head she was on earth in the twinkling of an eye. He went forward, up a little, and there was spoil, gold and silver, and each thing more precious than another, in the crone's castle. He went back to the king's house, and there was rejoicing. He followed herding in this way for a time, but one night after he came home, instead of getting all hail and good luck from the dairymaid, all were at crying in woe. He asked what cause of woe there was that night. The dairymaid said, there is a great beast with 3 heads in the lock, and it must get someone every year, and the lot had come this year on the king's daughter, and at midday tomorrow she is to meet the laidly beast at the upper end of the lock, but there is a great suitor yonder who is going to rescue her. What suitor is that? Said the herd. Oh, he is a great general of arms, said the dairymaid, and when he kills the beast, he will marry the king's daughter, for the king has said that he who could save his daughter should get her to marry. Illustration. But on the morrow, when the time grew near, the king's daughter and this hero of arms went to give a meeting to the beast, and they reached the black rock, at the upper end of the loch. They were but a short time there when the beast stirred in the midst of the loch, but when the general saw this terror of a beast with 3 heads, he took fright, and he slunk away, and he hid himself. And the king's daughter was under fear and under trembling, with no one at all to save her. Suddenly she sees a doughty handsome youth, riding a black horse, and coming where she was. He was marvelously arrayed and full armed, and his black dog moved after him. "There is gloom on your face, girl," said the youth, "what do you hear?" "Oh, that's no matter," said the king's daughter. "It's not long I'll be here at all events." "I say not that," said he. "A champion fled as likely as you, and not long since," said she. "He is a champion who stands the war," said the youth. "And to meet the beast he went with his sword and his dog." But there was a spluttering and a splashing between himself and the beast. The dog kept doing all he might, and the king's daughter was palsied by fear of the noise of the beast. One of them would now be under, and now above. But at last he cut one of the heads off it. It gave one roar, and the son of earth, echo of the rocks, called to its screech, and it drove the loch in spindrift from end to end, and in a twinkling it went out of sight. "Good luck and victory follow you, lad," said the king's daughter. "I am safe for one night, but the beast will come again and again, until the other 2 heads come off it." He caught the beast's head, and he drew a knot through it, and he told her to bring it with her there tomorrow. She gave him a gold ring, and went home with the head on her shoulder, and the herd betook himself to the cows. But she had not gone far when this great general saw her, and he said to her, "I will kill you if you do not say 'twas I took the head off the beast." "Oh," says she, "'tis I will say it, who else took the head off the beast but you?" They reached the king's house, and the head was on the general's shoulder. But here was rejoicing, that she should come home alive and whole, and this great captain with the beast's head full of blood in hand. On the morrow they went away, and there was no question at all but that this hero would save the king's daughter. They reached the same place, and they were not long there when the fearful laidly beast stirred in the midst of the loch, and the hero slunk away as he did on yesterday. But it was not long after this when the man of the black horse came, with another dress on. No matter, she knew that it was the very same lad. "It is I am pleased to see you," said she. "I am in hope she will handle your great sword today as you did yesterday. Come up and take breath." But they were not long there when they saw the beast steaming in the midst of the loch. At once he went to meet the beast, but there was Clipperstike and Claperstitch, spluttering, splashing, raving, and roaring on the beast. They kept at it thus for a long time, and about the mouth of the night he cut another head off the beast. He put it on the knot and gave it to her. She gave him one of her earrings, and he leaped on the black horse, and he betook himself to the herding. The king's daughter went home with the heads. The general met her, and took the heads from her. And he said to her that she must tell that it was he who took the head off the beast this time also. "Who else took the head off the beast but you?" said she. They reached the king's house with the heads. Then there was joy and gladness. Illustration. About the same time on the morrow, the 2 went away. The officer hid himself as he usually did. The king's daughter betook herself to the bank of the loch. The hero of the black horse came, and if roaring and raving were on the beast on the days that were past, this day it was horrible. But no matter, he took the 3rd head off the beast, and drew it through the knot, and gave it to her. She gave him her other earring, and then she went home with the heads. When they reached the king's house, all were full of smiles, and the general was to marry the king's daughter the next day. The wedding was going on, and every one about the castle longing till the priest should come. But when the priest came, she would marry only the one who could take the heads off the knot without cutting it. Who should take the heads off the knot? But the man that put the heads on, said the king. The general tried them, but he could not loose them, and at last there was no one about the house but had tried to take the heads off the knot, but they could not. The king asked if there were anyone else about the house that would try to take the heads off the knot. They said that the herd had not tried them yet. Word went for the herd, and he was not long throwing them hither and thither. But stop a bit, my lad, said the king's daughter, the man that took the heads off the beast, he has my ring and my 2 earrings. The herd put his hand in his pocket, and he threw them on the board. Thou art my man, said the king's daughter. The king was not so pleased when he saw that it was a herd who was to marry his daughter, but he ordered that he should be put in a better dress, but his daughter spoke, and she said that he had a dress as fine as any that ever was in his castle, and thus it happened. The herd put on the giant's golden dress, and they married that same day. They were now married, and everything went on well. But one day, and it was the namesake of the day when his father had promised him to the sea maiden, they were sauntering by the side of the loch, and lo and behold, she came and took him away to the loch without leave or asking. The king's daughter was now mournful, tearful, blind, sorrowful. For her married man, she was always with her eye on the loch. An old soothsayer met her, and she told how it had befallen her married mate. Then he told her the thing to do to save her mate, and that she did. She took her harp to the seashore, and sat and played, and the sea maiden came up to listen, for sea maidens are fonder of music than all other creatures. But when the wife saw the sea maiden, she stopped. The sea maiden said, "Play on," but the princess said, "No, not till I see my man again." So the sea maiden put up his head out of the loch. Then the princess played again, and stopped till the sea maiden put him up to the waist. Then the princess played and stopped again, and this time the sea maiden put him all out of the loch, and he called on the falcon and became one and flew on shore. But the sea maiden took the princess, his wife. Sorrowful was each one that was in the town on this night. Her man was mournful, tearful, wandering down and up about the banks of the loch. By day and night, the old soothsayer met him. The soothsayer told him that there was no way of killing the sea maiden but the one way, and this is it: in the island that is in the midst of the loch is the white-footed hind of the slenderest legs and the swiftest step, and though she be caught, there will spring a hoodie out of her, and though the hoodie should be caught, there will spring a trout out of her, but there is an egg in the mouth of the trout, and the soul of the sea maiden is in the egg, and if the egg breaks she is dead. Now, there was no way of getting to this island, for the sea maiden would sink each boat and raft that would go on the loch. He thought he would try to leap the strait with the black horse, and even so he did. The black horse leaped the strait. He saw the hind, and he let the black dog after her, but when he was on one side of the island, the hind would be on the other side. Oh! Would the black dog of the carcass of flesh were here! No sooner spoke he the word than the grateful dog was at his side, and after the hind he went, and they were not long in bringing her to earth. But he no sooner caught her than a hoodie sprang out of her. Would that the falcon grey, of sharpest eye and swiftest wing were here! No sooner said he this than the falcon was after the hoodie, and she was not long putting her to earth, and as the hoodie fell on the bank of the loch, out of her jumps the trout. Oh! That thou wert by me now, O otter! No sooner said than the otter was at his side, and out on the loch she leaped, and brings the trout from the midst of the loch, but no sooner was the otter on shore with the trout than the egg came from his mouth, he sprang and he put his foot on it. 'Twas then the sea maiden appeared. And she said, break not the egg, and you shall get all you ask. Deliver to me my wife. In the wink of an eye she was by his side. When he got hold of her hand in both his hands, he let his foot down on the egg and the sea maiden died. What Irishman, woman, or child has not heard of our renowned Hibernian Hercules, the great and glorious Finn Cowl? Not one, from Cape Clear to the Giant's Causeway, nor from that back again to Cape Clear. And, by the way, speaking of the Giant's Causeway brings me at once to the beginning of my story. Well, it so happened that Finn and his men were all working at the causeway, in order to make a bridge across to Scotland, when Finn, who was very fond of his wife Unac, took it into his head that he would go home and see how the poor woman got on in his absence. So, accordingly, he pulled up a fir tree, and, after lopping off the roots and branches, made a walking stick of it, and set out on his way to Unac. Unac, or rather Finn, lived at this time on the very tip-top of Knockmany Hill, which faces a cousin of its own called Cullamore, that rises up, half hill, half mountain, on the opposite side. There was at that time another giant, named Cuchulainn. Some say he was Irish, and some say he was Scotch, but whether Scotch or Irish, sorrow doubt of it, but he was a targer. No other giant of the day could stand before him, and such was his strength, that, when well vexed, he could give a stamp that shook the country about him. The fame and name of him went far and near, and nothing in the shape of a man, it was said, had any chance with him in a fight. By one blow of his fists he flattened a thunderbolt and kept it in his pocket, in the shape of a pancake, to show to all his enemies when they were about to fight him. Undoubtedly he had given every giant in Ireland a considerable beating, barring Finn Cowl himself, and he swore that he would never rest, night or day, winter or summer, till he would serve Finn with the same sauce, if he could catch him. However, the short and long of it was, with reverence be it spoken, that Finn heard Cuchulainn was coming to the causeway to have a trial of strength with him, and he was seized with a very warm and sudden fit of affection for his wife, poor woman, leading a very lonely, uncomfortable life of it in his absence. He accordingly pulled up the fir tree, as I said before, and having snedded it into a walking stick, set out on his travels to see his darling Unac on the top of Knockmany, by the way. In truth, the people wondered very much why it was that Finn selected such a windy spot for his dwelling house, and they even went so far as to tell him as much. What can you mean, Mr. Cowl, said they, by pitching your tent upon the top of Knockmany, where you never are without a breeze, day or night, winter or summer, and where you're often forced to take your nightcap without either going to bed or turning up your little finger? Aye, and where, besides this, there's the sorrow's own want of water? Why, said Finn, ever since I was the height of a round tower, I was known to be fond of having a good prospect of my own, and where the dickens, neighbors, could I find a better spot for a good prospect than the top of Knockmany? As for water, I am sinking a pump, and, plaise goodness, as soon as the causeway's made, I intend to finish it. Now, this was more of Finn's philosophy, for the real state of the case was, that he pitched upon the top of Knockmany in order that he might be able to see Cuchulainn coming towards the house. All we have to say is, that if he wanted a spot from which to keep a sharp lookout in, between ourselves, he did want it grievously, barring Slieve Crumb, or Slieve Donald, or its own cousin, Cullamore, he could not find a neater or more convenient situation for it in the sweet and sagacious province of Ulster. God save all here, said Finn, good-humouredly, on putting his honest face into his own door. Musha, Finn, avick, and you're welcome home to your own Unak, you darlin' bully. Here followed a smack that is said to have made the waters of the lake at the bottom of the hill curl, as it were, with kindness and sympathy. Finn spent 2 or 3 happy days with Unak, and felt himself very comfortable, considering the dread he had of Cuchulainn. This, however, grew upon him so much that his wife could not but perceive something lay on his mind which he kept altogether to himself. Let a woman alone, in the meantime, for ferreting or wheedling a secret out of her good man, when she wishes. Finn was a proof of this. It's this Cuchulainn, said he, that's troubling me. When the fellow gets angry, and begins to stamp, he'll shake you a whole townland, and it's well known that he can stop a thunderbolt, for he always carries one about him in the shape of a pancake, to show to anyone that might misdoubt it. As he spoke, he clapped his thumb in his mouth, which he always did when he wanted to prophesy, or to know anything that happened in his absence, and the wife asked him what he did it for. He's coming, said Finn, I see him below Dingennon. Thank goodness, dear. And who is it, avick? Glory be to God. That baste, Cuchulainn, replied Finn, and how to manage I don't know. If I run away, I am disgraced, and I know that sooner or later I must meet him, for my thumb tells me so. When will he be here, said she. Tomorrow, about 2 o'clock, replied Finn, with a groan. Well, my bully, don't be cast down, said Unak, depend on me, and maybe I'll bring you better out of this scrape than ever you could bring yourself, by your rule o' thumb. She then made a high smoke on the top of the hill, after which she put her finger in her mouth, and gave 3 whistles, and by that Cuchulainn knew he was invited to Cullamore, for this was the way that the Irish long ago gave a sign to all strangers and travellers, to let them know they were welcome to come and take share of whatever was going. In the meantime, Finn was very melancholy, and did not know what to do, or how to act at all. Cuchulainn was an ugly customer to meet with, and the idea of the cake aforesaid flattened the very heart within him. What chance could he have, strong and brave though he was, with a man who could, when put in a passion, walk the country into earthquakes and knock thunderbolts into pancakes? Finn knew not on what hand to turn him. Right or left, backward or forward, where to go he could form no guess whatsoever. Unak, said he, can you do nothing for me? Where's all your invention? Am I to be skivered like a rabbit before your eyes, and to have my name disgraced for ever in the sight of all my tribe, and me the best man among them? How am I to fight this man mountain, this huge cross between an earthquake and a thunderbolt, with a pancake in his pocket that was once? Be easy, Finn, replied Unak, troth, I'm ashamed of you. Keep your toe in your pump, will you? Talking of pancakes, maybe, we'll give him as good as any he brings with him, thunderbolt or otherwise. If I don't treat him to a smart feeding as he's got this many a day, never trust Unak again. Leave him to me, and do just as I bid you. This relieved Finn very much, for, after all, he had great confidence in his wife, knowing, as he did, that she had got him out of many a quandary before. Unak then drew the 9 woolen threads of different colors, which she always did to find out the best way of succeeding in anything of importance she went about. She then plaited them into 3 plaits with 3 colors in each, putting one on her right arm, one round her heart, and the third round her right ankle. For then she knew that nothing could fail with her that she undertook. Having everything now prepared, she sent round to the neighbors and borrowed 21 iron griddles, which she took and kneaded into the hearts of 21 cakes of bread, and these she baked on the fire in the usual way, setting them aside in the cupboard. according as they were done. She then put down a large pot of new milk, which she made into curds and whey. Having done all this, she sat down quite contented, waiting for his arrival on the next day. About 2 o'clock, that being the hour at which he was expected for, Finn knew as much by the sucking of his thumb. Now this was a curious property that Finn's thumb had. In this very thing, moreover, he was very much resembled by his great foe, Cuchulainn, for it was well known that the huge strength he possessed all lay in the middle finger of his right hand, and that, if he happened by any mischance to lose it, he was no more, for all his bulk, than a common man. At length, the next day, Cuchulainn was seen coming across the valley, and Unak knew that it was time to commence operations. She immediately brought the cradle, and made Finn to lie down in it, and cover himself up with the clothes. "You must pass for your own child," said she, "so just lie there snug, and say nothing, but be guided by me." About 2 o'clock, as he had been expected, Cuchulainn came in. "God save all here," said he, "is this where the great Finn cow lives?" "Indeed it is, honest man," replied Unak, "God save you. Kindly won't you be sitting?" "Thank you ma'am," says he, sitting down, "you're Mrs. Mkel, I suppose?" "I am," said she, "and I have no reason, I hope, to be ashamed of my husband." "No," said the other, "he has the name of being the strongest and bravest man in Ireland, but for all that, there's a man not far from you that's very desirous of taking a shake with him." "Is he at home?" "Why, then, no," she replied, "and if ever a man left his house in a fury he did. It appears that someone told him of a big baston of a giant called Cuchulainn being down at the causeway to look for him, and so he set out there to try if he could catch him. Troth, I hope, for the poor giant's sake, he won't meet with him, for if he does, Finn will make paste of him at once." "Well," said the other, "I am Cuchulainn, and I have been seeking him these 12 months, but he always kept clear of me, and I will never rest night or day till I lay my hands on him." At this Unak set up a loud laugh, of great contempt, by the way, and looked at him as if he was only a mere handful of a man. "Did you ever see Finn?" said she, changing her manner all at once. "How could I?" said he always took care to keep his distance. "I thought so," she replied, "I judged as much, and if you take my advice, you poor-looking creature, you'll pray night and day that you may never see him, for I tell you it will be a black day for you when you do. But, in the meantime, you perceive that the wind's on the door, and as Finn himself is from home, maybe you'd be civil enough to turn the house, for it's always what Finn does when he's here." This was a startler even to Cuchulainn, but he got up, however, and after pulling the middle finger of his right hand until it cracked 3 times, he went outside, and getting his arms about the house, turned it as she had wished. When Finn saw this, he felt the sweat of fear oozing out through every pore of his skin, but Unak, depending upon her woman's wit, felt not a whit daunted. "Ara, then," said she, "as you are so civil, maybe you'd do another obliging turn for us, as Finn's not here to do it himself. You see, after this long stretch of dry weather we've had, we feel very badly off for want of water. Now, Finn says there's a fine spring well somewhere under the rocks behind the hill here below, and it was his intention to pull them asunder, but having heard of you, he left the place in such a fury that he never thought of it. Now, if you try to find it, troth, I'd feel it a kindness." She then brought Cuchulainn down to see the place, which was then all one solid rock, and, after looking at it for some time, he cracked his right middle finger 9 times, and, stooping down, tore a cleft about 400 feet deep, and 1/4 of a mile in length, which has since been christened by the name of Lumford's Glen. "You'll now come in," said she, "and eat a bit of such humble fare as we can give you. Finn, even although he and you are enemies, would scorn not to treat you kindly in his own house, and, indeed, if I didn't do it even in his absence, he would not be pleased with me. She accordingly brought him in, and placing half a dozen of the cakes we spoke of before him, together with a can or two of butter, a side of boiled bacon, and a stack of cabbage, she desired him to help himself, for this, be it known, was long before the invention of potatoes. Cuchulainn put one of the cakes in his mouth to take a huge whack out of it, when he made a thundering noise, something between a growl and a yell. Blood and fury, he shouted, how is this? Here are two of my teeth out. What kind of bread is this you gave me? What's the matter? Said Unak coolly. Matter, shouted the other again, why here are the two best teeth in my head gone. Why, said she, that's Finn's bread, the only bread he ever eats when at home, but, indeed, I forgot to tell you that nobody can eat it but himself, and that child in the cradle there. I thought, however, that as you were reported to be rather a stout little fellow of your size, you might be able to manage it, and I did not wish to affront a man that thinks himself able to fight Finn. Here's another cake, maybe it's not so hard as that. Cuchulainn at the moment was not only hungry, but ravenous, so he accordingly made a fresh set at the second cake, and immediately another yell was heard twice as loud as the first. Thunder and gibbets, he roared, take your bread out of this, or I will not have a tooth in my head, there's another pair of them gone. Well, honest man, replied Unak, if you're not able to eat the bread, say so quietly, and don't be wakening the child in the cradle. There now, he's awake upon me. Finn now gave a skirl that startled the giant, as coming from such a youngster as he was supposed to be. Mother, said he, I'm hungry, get me something to eat. Unak went over, and putting into his hand a cake that had no griddle in it, Finn, whose appetite in the meantime had been sharpened by seeing eating going forward, soon swallowed it. Cuchulainn was thunderstruck, and secretly thanked his stars that he had the good fortune to miss meeting Finn, for, as he said to himself, I'd have no chance with a man who could eat such bread as that, which even his son that's but in his cradle can munch before my eyes. I'd like to take a glimpse at the lad in the cradle, said he to Unak, for I can tell you that the infant who can manage that nutriment is no joke to look at, or to feed of a scarce summer. Illustration. With all the veins of my heart, replied Unak, get up, Akushla, and show this decent little man something that won't be unworthy of your father, Finn Kell. Finn, who was dressed for the occasion as much like a boy as possible, got up, and bringing Cuchulainn out, are you strong? Said he. Thunder and ounds, exclaimed the other, what a voice in so small a chap. Are you strong? Said Finn again, are you able to squeeze water out of that white stone? He asked, putting one into Cuchulainn's hand. The latter squeezed and squeezed the stone, but in vain. Ah! You're a poor creature, said Fingu a giant. Give me the stone here, and when I'll show what Finn's little son can do, you may then judge of what my daddy himself is. Finn then took the stone, and exchanging it for the curds, he squeezed the latter until the whey, as clear as water, oozed out in a little shower from his hand. I'll now go in, said he, to my cradle, for I scorn to lose my time with anyone that's not able to eat my daddy's bread, or squeeze water out of a stone. Bedad, you had better be off out of this before he comes back, for if he catches you, it's in flummery he'd have you in 2 minutes. Cuchulainn, seeing what he had seen, was of the same opinion himself. His knees knocked together with the terror of Finn's return, and he accordingly hastened to bid Unak farewell, and to assure her that from that day out, he never wished to hear of, much less to see, her husband. I admit fairly that I'm not a match for him, said he. Strong as I am, tell him I will avoid him as I would the plague, and that I will make myself scarce in this part of the country while I live. Finn, in the meantime, had gone into the cradle, where he lay very quietly, his heart at his mouth with delight that Cuchulainn was about to take his departure, without discovering the tricks that had been played off on him. It's well for you, said Unak, that he doesn't happen to be here. For it's nothing but hawk's meat he'd make of you. I know that, said Cuchulainn, divil a thing else he'd make of me, but before I go, will you let me feel what kind of teeth Finn's lad has got? That can eat griddle bread like that? With all pleasure in life, said she, only as they're far back in his head, you must put your finger a good way in. Cuchulainn was surprised to find such a powerful set of grinders in one so young, but he was still much more so on finding, when he took his hand from Finn's mouth, that he had left the very finger upon which his whole strength depended, behind him. He gave one loud groan, and fell down at once with terror and weakness. This was all Finn wanted, who now knew that his most powerful and bitterest enemy was at his mercy. He started out of the cradle, and in a few minutes the great Cuchulainn, that was for such a length of time the terror of him and all his followers, lay a corpse before him. Thus did Finn, through the wit and invention of Unak, his wife, succeed in overcoming his enemy by cunning, which he never could have done by force. King Hugh Carucha lived in Tir Conal, and he had 3 daughters, whose names were Fair, Brown, and Trembling. Fair and Brown had new dresses, and went to church every Sunday. Trembling was kept at home to do the cooking and work. They would not let her go out of the house at all, for she was more beautiful than the other 2, and they were in dread she might marry before themselves. They carried on in this way for 7 years. At the end of 7 years, the son of the king of Emania fell in love with the eldest sister. One Sunday morning, after the other 2 had gone to church, the old henwife came into the kitchen to Trembling, and said, "It's at church. You ought to be this day, instead of working here at home." "How could I go?" said Trembling. "I have no clothes good enough to wear at church, and if my sisters were to see me there, they'd kill me for going out of the house." "I'll give you," said the henwife, "a finer dress than either of them has ever seen. And now tell me, what dress will you have?" "I'll have," said Trembling, "a dress as white as snow, and green shoes for my feet." Then the henwife put on the cloak of darkness, clipped a piece from the old clothes the young woman had on, and asked for the whitest robes in the world and the most beautiful that could be found, and a pair of green shoes. That moment she had the robe and the shoes, and she brought them to Trembling, who put them on. When Trembling was dressed and ready, the henwife said, "I have a honey bird here to sit on your right shoulder, and a honey finger to put on your left. At the door stands a milk-white mare, with a golden saddle for you to sit on, and a golden bridle to hold in your hand." Trembling sat on the golden saddle, and when she was ready to start, the henwife said, "You must not go inside the door of the church, and the minute the people rise up at the end of Mass, do you make off, and ride home as fast as the mare will carry you." When Trembling came to the door of the church there was no one inside who could get a glimpse of her but was striving to know who she was. And when they saw her hurrying away at the end of Mass, they ran out to overtake her. But no use in their running, she was away before any man could come near her. From the minute she left the church till she got home, she overtook the wind before her, and outstripped the wind behind. She came down at the door, went in, and found the henwife had dinner ready. She put off the white robes, and had on her old dress in a twinkling. When the 2 sisters came home the henwife asked, "Have you any news today from the church?" "We have great news," said they. "We saw a wonderful grand lady at the church door. The like of the robe we have never seen on woman before. It's little that was thought of our dresses beside what she had on, and there wasn't a man at the church, from the king to the beggar, but was trying to look at her and know who she was. The sisters would give no peace till they had 2 dresses like the robes of the strange lady, but honeybirds and honey fingers were not to be found. Next Sunday the 2 sisters went to church again and left the youngest at home to cook the dinner. After they had gone, the henwife came in and asked, "Will you go to church today?" "I would go," said Trembling, "if I could get the going." "What robe will you wear?" asked the henwife. "The finest black satin that can be found, and red shoes for my feet." "What color do you want the mare to be?" "I want her to be so black and so glossy that I can see myself in her body." The henwife put on the cloak of darkness, and asked for the robes and the mare. That moment she had them. When Trembling was dressed, the henwife put the honeybird on her right shoulder and the honey finger on her left. The saddle on the mare was silver, and so was the bridle. Illustration, Trembling at the church door. When Trembling sat in the saddle and was going away, the henwife ordered her strictly not to go inside the door of the church, but to rush away as soon as the people rose at the end of Mass, and hurry home on the mare before any man could stop her. That Sunday the people were more astonished than ever, and gazed at her more than the first time, and all they were thinking of was to know who she was. But they had no chance, for the moment the people rose at the end of Mass she slipped from the church, was in the silver saddle, and home before a man could stop her or talk to her. The henwife had the dinner ready. Trembling took off her satin robe and had on her old clothes before her sisters got home. "What news have you today?" asked the henwife of the sisters when they came from the church. "Oh, we saw the grand strange lady again. And it's little that any man could think of our dresses after looking at the robes of satin that she had on. And all at church, from high to low, had their mouths open, gazing at her, and no man was looking at us." The 2 sisters gave neither rest nor peace till they got dresses as nearly like the strange lady's robes as they could find. Of course, they were not so good, for the like of those robes could not be found in Erin. When the 3rd Sunday came, Fair and Brown went to church dressed in black satin. They left Trembling at home to work in the kitchen, and told her to be sure and have dinner ready when they came back. After they had gone and were out of sight, the henwife came to the kitchen and said, "Well, my dear, are you for church today?" "I would go if I had a new dress to wear." "I'll get you any dress you ask for." "What dress would you like?" asked the henwife. "A dress red as a rose from the waist down, and white as snow from the waist up, a cape of green on my shoulders, and a hat on my head with a red, a white, and a green feather in it, and shoes for my feet with the toes red, the middle white, and the backs and heels green." The henwife put on the cloak of darkness, wished for all these things, and had them. When Trembling was dressed, the henwife put the honeybird on her right shoulder and the honey finger on her left, and, placing the hat on her head, clipped a few hairs from one lock and a few from another with her scissors, and that moment the most beautiful golden hair was flowing down over the girl's shoulders. Then the henwife asked what kind of a mare she would ride. She said white, with blue and gold-colored diamond-shaped spots all over her body, on her back a saddle of gold, and on her head a golden bridle. The mare stood there before the door, and a bird sitting between her ears, which began to sing as soon as Trembling was in the saddle, and never stopped till she came home from the church. The fame of the beautiful strange lady had gone out through the world, and all the princes and great men that were in it came to church that Sunday, each one hoping that it was himself would have her home with him after Mass. The son of the king of Emania forgot all about the eldest sister, and remained outside the church so as to catch the strange lady before she could hurry away. The church was more crowded than ever before, and there were 3 times as many outside. There was such a throng before the church that Trembling could only come inside the gate. As soon as the people were rising at the end of Mass, the lady slipped out through the gate, was in the golden saddle in an instant, and sweeping away ahead of the wind. But if she was, the Prince of Emania was at her side, and, seizing her by the foot, he ran with the mare for 30 perches, and never let go of the beautiful lady till the shoe was pulled from her foot, and he was left behind with it in his hand. She came home as fast as the mare could carry her, and was thinking all the time that the henwife would kill her for losing the shoe. Seeing her so vexed and so changed in the face, the old woman asked, "What's the trouble that's on you now?" "Oh, I've lost one of the shoes off my feet," said Trembling. "Don't mind that, don't be vexed," said the henwife, "maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to you." Then Trembling gave up all the things she had to the henwife, put on her old clothes, and went to work in the kitchen. When the sisters came home, the henwife asked, "Have you any news from the church?" "We have indeed," said they, "for we saw the grandest sight today. The strange lady came again, in grander array than before, on herself. And the horse she rode were the finest colors of the world, and between the ears of the horse was a bird which never stopped singing from the time she came till she went away. The lady herself is the most beautiful woman ever seen by man in Erin." After Trembling had disappeared from the church, the son of the king of Emania said to the other king's sons, "I will have that lady for my own." They all said, "You didn't win her just by taking the shoe off her foot, you'll have to win her by the point of the sword, you'll have to fight for her with us before you can call her your own." "Well," said the son of the king of Emania, "when I find the lady that she will fit, I'll fight for her, never fear, before I leave her to any of you." Then all the king's sons were uneasy, and anxious to know who was she that lost the shoe, and they began to travel all over Erin to know could they find her. The Prince of Emania and all the others went in a great company together, and made the round of Erin. They went everywhere, north, south, east, and west. They visited every place where a woman was to be found, and left not a house in the kingdom they did not search, to know could they find the woman the shoe would fit, not caring whether she was rich or poor, of high or low degree. The Prince of Emania always kept the shoe, and when the young women saw it, they had great hopes, for it was of proper size, neither large nor small, and it would beat any man to know of what material it was made. One thought it would fit her if she cut a little from her great toe, and another, with too short a foot, put something in the tip of her stocking. But no use, they only spoiled their feet, and were curing them for months afterwards. The 2 sisters, Fair and Brown, heard that the princes of the world were looking all over Erin for the woman that could wear the shoe, and every day they were talking of trying it on, and one day Trembling spoke up and said, "Maybe it's my foot that the shoe will fit." "Oh, the breaking of the dog's foot on you? Why say so when you were at home every Sunday?" They were that way waiting, and scolding the younger sister, till the princes were near the place. The day they were to come, the sisters put Trembling in a closet, and locked the door on her. When the company came to the house, the Prince of Emania gave the shoe to the sisters. But though they tried and tried, it would fit neither of them. "Is there any other young woman in the house?" asked the prince. "There is," said Trembling, speaking up in the closet, "I'm here." "Oh. We have her for nothing but to put out the ashes," said the sisters. But the prince and the others wouldn't leave the house till they had seen her, so the 2 sisters had to open the door. When Trembling came out, the shoe was given to her, and it fitted exactly. The Prince of Emania looked at her and said, "You are the woman the shoe fits, and you are the woman I took the shoe from." Then Trembling spoke up, and said, "Do you stay here till I return?" Then she went to the henwife's house. The old woman put on the cloak of darkness, got everything for her she had the first Sunday at church, and put her on the white mare in the same fashion. Then Trembling rode along the highway to the front of the house. All who saw her the first time said, "This is the lady we saw at church." Then she went away a second time, and a second time came back on the black mare in the second dress which the henwife gave her. All who saw her the second Sunday said, "That is the lady we saw at church." A third time she asked for a short absence, and soon came back on the third mare and in the third dress. All who saw her the third time said, "That is the lady we saw at church." Every man was satisfied and knew that she was the woman. Then all the princes and great men spoke up, and said to the son of the king of Emania, "You'll have to fight now for her before we let her go with you." "I'm here before you, ready for combat," answered the prince. Then the son of the king of Lochlann stepped forth. The struggle began. And a terrible struggle it was. They fought for 9 hours, and then the son of the king of Lochlann stopped, gave up his claim, and left the field. Next day the son of the king of Spain fought 6 hours, and yielded his claim. On the third day the son of the king of Nerfoy fought 8 hours, and stopped. The fourth day the son of the king of Greece fought 6 hours, and stopped. On the fifth day no more strange princes wanted to fight, and all the sons of kings in Erin said they would not fight with a man of their own land, that the strangers had their chance, and, as no others came to claim the woman, she belonged of right to the son of the king of Emania. The marriage day was fixed, and the invitations were sent out. The wedding lasted for a year and a day. When the wedding was over, the king's son brought home the bride, and when the time came a son was born. The young woman sent for her eldest sister, Fair, to be with her and care for her. One day, when Trembling was well, and when her husband was away hunting, the two sisters went out to walk, and when they came to the seaside, the eldest pushed the youngest sister in. A great whale came and swallowed her. The eldest sister came home alone, and the husband asked, "Where is your sister?" "She has gone home to her father in Balishannon, now that I am well. I don't need her." "Well," said the husband, looking at her, "I'm in dread it's my wife that was gone." "Oh. No," said she, "it's my sister Fair that's gone." Since the sisters were very much alike, the prince was in doubt. That night he put his sword between them, and said, "If you are my wife, this sword will get warm, if not, it will stay cold." Illustration. In the morning when he rose up, the sword was as cold as when he put it there. It happened, when the two sisters were walking by the seashore, that a little cowboy was down by the water minding cattle, and saw Fair push Trembling into the sea, and next day, when the tide came in, he saw the whale swim up and throw her out on the sand. When she was on the sand she said to the cowboy, "When you go home in the evening with the cows, tell the master that my sister Fair pushed me into the sea yesterday, that a whale swallowed me, and then threw me out, but will come again and swallow me with the coming of the next tide, then he'll go out with the tide, and come again with tomorrow's tide, and throw me again on the strand. The whale will cast me out 3 times. I'm under the enchantment of this whale, and cannot leave the beach or escape myself. Unless my husband saves me before I'm swallowed the 4th time I shall be lost. He must come and shoot the whale with a silver bullet when he turns on the broad of his back. Under the breast fin of the whale is a reddish-brown spot. My husband must hit him in that spot, for it is the only place in which he can be killed. When the cowboy got home, the eldest sister gave him a draught of oblivion, and he did not tell. Next day he went again to the sea. The whale came and cast Trembling on shore again. She asked the boy, "Did you tell the master what I told you to tell him?" "I did not," said he, "I forgot." "How did you forget?" asked she. "The woman of the house gave me a drink that made me forget." "Well, don't forget telling him this night, and if she gives you a drink, don't take it from her." As soon as the cowboy came home, the eldest sister offered him a drink. He refused to take it till he had delivered his message and told all to the master. The third day the prince went down with his gun and a silver bullet in it. He was not long down when the whale came and threw Trembling upon the beach as the 2 days before. She had no power to speak to her husband till he had killed the whale. Then the whale went out, turned over once on the broad of his back, and showed the spot for a moment only. That moment the prince fired. He had but the one chance, and a short one at that, but he took it. And he hit the spot, and the whale, mad with pain, made the sea all around red with blood, and died. That minute Trembling was able to speak, and went home with her husband, who sent word to her father what the eldest sister had done. The father came and told him any death he chose to give her to give it. The prince told the father he would leave her life and death with himself. The father had her put out then on the sea in a barrel, with provisions in it for 7 years. In time Trembling had a second child, a daughter. The prince and she sent the cowboy to school, and trained him up as one of their own children, and said, "If the little girl that is born to us now lives, no other man in the world will get her but him." The cowboy and the prince's daughter lived on till they were married. The mother said to her husband, "You could not have saved me from the whale but for the little cowboy, on that account I don't grudge him my daughter." The son of the king of Emania and Trembling had 14 children, and they lived happily till the 2 died of old age. A poor woman had 3 sons. The eldest and second eldest were cunning, clever fellows, but they called the youngest Jack the Fool, because they thought he was no better than a simpleton. The eldest got tired of staying at home, and said he'd go look for service. He stayed away a whole year, and then came back one day, dragging one foot after the other, and a poor wizened face on him, and he as cross as 2 sticks. When he was rested and got something to eat, he told them how he got service with the grey churl of the townland of Mischance, and that the agreement was, whoever would first say he was sorry for his bargain, should get an inch wide of the skin of his back, from shoulder to hips, taken off. If it was the master, he should also pay double wages; if it was the servant, he should get no wages at all. "But the thief," says he, "gave me so little to eat, and kept me so hard at work, that flesh and blood couldn't stand it, and when he asked me once, when I was in a passion, if I was sorry for my bargain, I was mad enough to say I was, and here I am disabled for life." Vexed enough were the poor mother and brothers, and the second eldest said on the spot he'd go and take service with the grey churl, and punish him by all the annoyance he'd give him till he'd make him say he was sorry for his agreement. "Oh, won't I be glad to see the skin coming off the old villain's back," said he. All they could say had no effect. He started off for the townland of Mischance, and in a 12-month he was back just as miserable and helpless as his brother. All the poor mother could say didn't prevent Jack the Fool from starting to see if he was able to regulate the grey churl. He agreed with him for a year for £20, and the terms were the same. "Now, Jack," said the grey churl, "if you refuse to do anything you are able to do, you must lose a month's wages." "I'm satisfied," said Jack, "and if you stop me from doing a thing after telling me to do it, you are to give me an additional month's Wages. I am satisfied, said the master. Or if you blame me for obeying your orders, you must give the same. I am satisfied, said the master again. The first day that Jack served he was fed very poorly, and was worked to the saddle skirts. Next day he came in just before the dinner was served up to the parlor. They were taking the goose off the spit, but well becomes Jack he whips a knife off the dresser, and cuts off one side of the breast, one leg and thigh, and one wing, and fell to. In came the master, and began to abuse him for his assurance. Oh, you. No, master, you're to feed me, and wherever the goose goes won't have to be filled again till supper. Are you sorry for our agreement? The master was going to cry out he was, but he bethought himself in time. Oh, no, not at all, said he. That's well, said Jack. Next day Jack was to go clamp turf on the bog. They weren't sorry to have him away from the kitchen at dinner time. He didn't find his breakfast very heavy on his stomach, so he said to the mistress, I think, ma'am, it will be better for me to get my dinner now, and not lose time coming home from the bog. That's true, Jack, said she. So she brought out a good cake, and a print of butter, and a bottle of milk, thinking he'd take them away to the bog. But Jack kept his seat, and never drew rein till bread, butter, and milk went down the red lane. Now, mistress, said he, I'll be earlier at my work tomorrow if I sleep comfortably on the sheltry side of a pile of dry peat on dry grass, and not be coming here and going back. So you may as well give me my supper, and be done with the day's trouble. She gave him that, thinking he'd take it to the bog, but he fell to on the spot, and did not leave a scrap to tell tales on him, and the mistress was a little astonished. He called to speak to the master in the haggard and said what are servants asked to do in this country after eaten their supper? Nothing at all, but to go to bed. Oh, very well, sir. He went up on the stable loft, stripped, and lay down, and someone that saw him told the master. He came up. Jack, you anointed scoundrel, what do you mean? To go to sleep, master. The mistress, God bless her, is after giving me my breakfast, dinner, and supper, and yourself told me that bed was the next thing. Do you blame me, sir? Yes, you rascal, I do. Hand me out £1 13 and 4, if you please, sir. 1 divil and 13 imps, you tinker. What for? Oh, I see, you forgot your bargain. Are you sorry for it? Oh, I mean. I'll give you the money after your nap. Next morning early, Jack asked how he'd be employed that day. You are to be holding the plough in that fallow, outside the paddock. The master went over about 9 o'clock to see what kind of a ploughman was Jack, and what did he see but the little boy driving the bastes, and the sock and coulter of the plough skimming along the sod, and Jack pulling ding-dong again the horses. What are you doing, you contrary thief, said the master. And ain't I striven to hold this divil of a plough, as you told me? But that cron of a boy keeps whipping on the bastes in spite of all I say. Will you speak to him? No, but I'll speak to you. Didn't you know, you bosthoon, that when I said holding the plough, I meant reddening the ground? Faith, and if you did, I wish you had said so. Do you blame me for what I have done? The master caught himself in time, but he was so stomached, he said nothing. Go on and redden the ground now, you knave, as other ploughmen do. And are you sorry for our agreement? Oh, not at all, not at all. Jack ploughed away like a good workman all the rest of the day. In a day or two the master bade him go and mind the cows in a field that had half of it under young corn. Be sure, particularly, said he, to keep Brownie from the wheat, while she's out of mischief. There's no fear of the rest. About noon, he went to see how Jack was doing his duty, and what did he find but Jack asleep with his face to the sod, Brownie grazing near a thorn tree, one end of a long rope round her horns, and the other end round the tree, and the rest of the beasts all trampling and eating the green wheat. Down came the switch on Jack. Jack, you vagabond, do you see what the cows are at? And do you blame me, master? To be sure, you lazy sluggard, I do. Illustration. Hand me out £1 13 and 4 pence, master. You said if I only kept Brownie out of mischief, the rest would do no harm. There. She is as harmless as a lamb. Are you sorry for hiring me, master? To be that is, not at all. I'll give you your money when you go to dinner. Now, understand me, don't let a cow go out of the field nor into the wheat the rest of the day. Never fear, master, and neither did he. But the churl would rather than a great deal he had not hired him. The next day 3 heifers were missing, and the master bade Jack go in search of them. Where will I look for them? Said Jack. Oh, every place likely and unlikely for them all to be in. Illustration. The churl was getting very exact in his words. When he was coming into the bown at dinner time, what work did he find Jack at but pulling armfuls of the thatch off the roof, and peeping into the holes he was making? What are you doing there, you rascal? Sure, I'm looking for the heifers, poor things. What would bring them there? I don't think anything could bring them in it, but I looked first into the likely places, that is, the cowhouses, and the pastures, and the fields next and now I'm looking in the unlikeliest place I can think of. Maybe it's not pleasing to you, it is. And to be sure it isn't pleasing to me, you aggravating goosecap. Please, sir, hand me £1 13 and 4 pence before you sit down to your dinner. I'm afraid it's sorrow that's on you for hiring me at all. May the divo know, I'm not sorry. Will you begin, if you please, and put in the thatch again, just as if you were doing it for your mother's cabin? Oh, faith I will, sir, with a heart and a half, and by the time the farmer came out for his dinner, Jack had the roof better than it was before, for he made the boy give him new straw. Says the master when he came out, Go, Jack, and look for the heifers, and bring them home. And where will I look for 'em? Go and search for them as if they were your own. The heifers were all in the paddock before sunset. Next morning, says the master, Jack, the path across the bog to the pasture is very bad, the sheep does be sinking in it every step, go and make the sheep's feet a good path. About an hour after he came to the edge of the bog, and what did he find Jack at but sharpening a carving knife, and the sheep standing or grazing around. Is this the way you are mending the path, Jack? Said he. Everything must have a beginning, master, said Jack, and a thing well begun is half done. I am sharpening the knife, and I'll have the feet off every sheep in the flock while you'd be blessing yourself. Feet off my sheep, you anointed rogue. And what would you be taking their feet off for? And sure to mend the path as you told me. Says you, Jack, make a path with the foot of the sheep. Oh, you fool, I meant make good the path for the sheep's feet. It's a pity you didn't say so, master. Hand me out, £1 13 and 4 pence if you don't like me to finish my job. Divil do you good with your £1 13 and 4 pence. It's better pray than curse, master. Maybe you're sorry for your bargain? And to be sure I am not yet, anyway. The next night the master was going to a wedding, and says he to Jack, before he set out, I'll leave at midnight, and I wish you to come and be with me home, for fear I might be overtaken with the drink. If you're there before, you may throw a sheep's eye at me, and I'll be sure to see that they'll give you something for yourself. About 11 o'clock, while the master was in great spirits, he felt Something clammy hit him on the cheek. It fell beside his tumbler. And when he looked at it, what was it but the eye of a sheep? Well, he couldn't imagine who threw it at him, or why it was thrown at him. After a little he got a blow on the other cheek, and still it was by another sheep's eye. Well, he was very vexed, but he thought better to say nothing. In 2 minutes more, when he was opening his mouth to take a sup, another sheep's eye was slapped into it. He sputtered it out, and cried, "Man o' the house, isn't it a great shame for you to have anyone in the room that would do such a nasty thing?" "Master," says Jack, "don't blame the honest man. Sure it's only myself that was throwin' them sheep's eyes at you, to remind you I was here, and that I wanted to drink the bride and bridegroom's health. You know yourself bade me. I know that you are a great rascal, and where did you get the eyes?" "And where would I get 'em but in the heads of your own sheep? Would you have me meddle with the bastes of any neighbor, who might put me in the stone jug for it? Sorrow on me that ever I had the bad luck to meet with you." "You're all witness," said Jack, "that my master says he is sorry for having met with me. My time is up. Master, hand me over double wages. And come into the next room, and lay yourself out like a man that has some decency in him, till I take a strip of skin an inch broad from your shoulder to your hip." Every one shouted out against that, but, says Jack, "you didn't hinder him when he took the same strips from the backs of my 2 brothers, and sent them home in that state, and penniless, to their poor mother." When the company heard the rights of the business, they were only too eager to see the job done. The master bawled and roared, but there was no help at hand. He was stripped to his hips, and laid on the floor in the next room, and Jack had the carving knife in his hand ready to begin. "Now you cruel old villain," said he, giving the knife a couple of scrapes along the floor, "I'll make you an offer. Give me, along with my double wages, 200 guineas to support my poor brothers, and I'll do without the strip." "No," said he, "I'd let you skin me from head to foot first." "Here goes then," said Jack with a grin, but the first little scar he gave, Churl roared out, "Stop your hand, I'll give the money." "Now, neighbors," said Jack, "you mustn't think worse of me than I deserve. I wouldn't have the heart to take an eye out of a rat itself. I got half a dozen of them from the butcher, and only used 3 of them." So all came again into the other room, and Jack was made sit down, and everybody drank his health, and he drank everybody's health at one offer. And 6 stout fellows saw himself and the master home, and waited in the parlor while he went up and brought down the 200 guineas, and double wages for Jack himself. When he got home, he brought the summer along with him to the poor mother and the disabled brothers, and he was no more Jack the fool in the people's mouths, but Skin Churl Jack. Prince Llewellyn had a favorite greyhound named Gellert that had been given to him by his father-in-law, King John. He was as gentle as a lamb at home but a lion in the chase. One day Llewellyn went to the chase and blew his horn in front of his castle. All his other dogs came to the call, but Gellert never answered it. So he blew a louder blast on his horn and called Gellert by name, but still the greyhound did not come. At last Prince Llewellyn could wait no longer and went off to the hunt without Gellert. He had little sport that day because Gellert was not there, the swiftest and boldest of his hounds. He turned back in a rage to his castle, and as he came to the gate, who should he see but Gellert come bounding out to meet him. But when the hound came near him, the prince was startled to see that his lips and fangs were dripping with blood. Llewellyn started back and the greyhound crouched down at his feet as if surprised or afraid at the way his master greeted him. Now Prince Llewellyn had a little son a year old with whom Gellert used to play, and a terrible thought crossed the prince's mind that made him rush towards the child's nursery. And the nearer he came, the more blood and disorder he found about the rooms. He rushed into it and found the child's cradle overturned and daubed with blood. Illustration. Prince Llewellyn grew more and more terrified, and sought for his little son everywhere. He could find him nowhere, but only signs of some terrible conflict in which much blood had been shed. At last he felt sure the dog had destroyed his child, and shouting to Gellert, "Monster, thou hast devoured my child," he drew out his sword and plunged it in the greyhound's side, who fell with a deep yell and, still gazing in his master's eyes. As Gellert raised his dying yell, a little child's cry answered it from beneath the cradle, and there Llewellyn found his child unharmed and just awakened from sleep. But just beside him lay the body of a great gaunt wolf, all torn to pieces and covered with blood. Too late. Llewellyn learned what had happened while he was away. Gellert had stayed behind to guard the child and had fought and slain the wolf that had tried to destroy Llewellyn's heir. In vain was all Llewellyn's grief, he could not bring his faithful dog to life again. So he buried him outside the castle walls within sight of the great mountain of Snowdon, where every passer-by might see his grave, and raised over it a great cairn of stones. And to this day the place is called Beth Gellert, or the grave of Gellert, and men say, "I repent me as much as the man that slew his greyhound." My grandfather, Andrew Coffey, was known to the whole barony as a quiet, decent man. And if the whole barony knew him, he knew the whole barony, every inch, hill and dale, bog and pasture, field and covert. Fancy his surprise one evening, when he found himself in a part of the domain he couldn't recognize a bit. He and his good horse were always stumbling up against some tree or stumbling down into some bog hole that by rights didn't ought to be there. On the top of all this, the rain came pelting down wherever there was a clearing, and the cold March wind tore through the trees. Glad he was when he saw a light in the distance, and drawing near found a cabin, though for the life of him he couldn't think how it came there. However, in he walked, after tying up his horse, and right welcome was the brushwood fire blazing on the hearth. And there stood a chair right and tight, that seemed to say, "Come, sit down in me." There wasn't a soul else in the room. Well, he did sit, and got a little warm and cheered after his drenching. But all the while he was wondering and wondering. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. Good heavens! Who was calling him, and not a soul in sight? Look around as he might, indoors and out, he could find no creature with 2 legs or 4, for his horse was gone. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. Tell me a story. It was louder this time, and it was nearer. And then what a thing to ask for. It was bad enough not to be let sit by the fire and dry oneself, without being bothered for a story. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. Tell me a story, or it'll be the worse for you. My poor grandfather was so dumbfounded that he could only stand and stare. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. I told you it'd be the worse for you. And with that, out there bounced from a cupboard that Andrew Coffey had never noticed before, a man. And the man was in a towering rage. But it wasn't that. And he carried as fine a blackthorn as you'd wish to crack a man's head with. But it wasn't that either. But when my grandfather clapped eyes on him, he knew him for Patrick Rooney, and all the world knew he'd gone overboard, fishing one night, long years before. Andrew Coffey would neither stop nor stay, but he took to his heels and was out of the house as hard as he could. He ran and he ran, taking little thought of what was before, till at last he ran up against a big tree. And then he sat down to rest. He hadn't sat for a moment when he heard voices. It's heavy, he is the vagabond. Steady now, we'll rest when we get under the big tree yonder. Now that happened to be the tree under which Andrew Coffey was sitting. At least he thought so, for seeing a branch handy he swung himself up by it, and was soon snugly hidden away. Better see than be seen, thought he. The rain had stopped and the wind fallen. The night was blacker than ever, but Andrew Coffey could see 4 men, and they were carrying between them a long box. Under the tree they came, set the box down, opened it, and who should they bring out but Patrick Rooney? Never a word did he say, and he looked as pale as old snow. Well, one gathered brushwood, and another took out tinder and flint. And they soon had a big fire roaring, and my grandfather could see Patrick plainly enough. If he had kept still before, he kept stiller now. Soon they had 4 poles up and a pole across, right over the fire, for all the world like a spit, and onto the pole they slung Patrick Rooney. He'll do well enough, said one, but who's to mind him whilst we're away? Who'll turn the fire, who'll see that he doesn't burn? With that Patrick opened his lips. Andrew Coffey, said he. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. I'm much obliged to you, gentlemen, said Andrew Coffey, but indeed I know nothing about the business. You'd better come down, Andrew Coffey, said Patrick. It was the second time he spoke, and Andrew Coffey decided he would come down. The 4 men went off, and he was left all alone with Patrick. Then he sat and he kept the fire even, and he kept the spit turning. And all the while Patrick looked at him. Poor Andrew Coffey couldn't make it all out, at all, and he stared at Patrick and at the fire, and he thought of the little house in the wood, till he felt quite dazed. Ah, but it's burning me, ye are, says Patrick, very short and sharp. I'm sure I beg your pardon, said my grandfather, but might I ask you a question? If you want a crooked answer, said Patrick, turn away, or it'll be the worse for you. But my grandfather couldn't get it out of his head, hadn't everybody far and near, said Patrick, had fallen overboard. There was enough to think about, and my grandfather did think. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. It's burning me, ye are. Sorry enough my grandfather was, and he vowed he wouldn't do so again. You'd better not, said Patrick, and he gave him a cock of his eye and a grin of his teeth, that just sent a shiver down Andrew Coffey's back. Well, it was odd that here he should be in a thick wood he had never set eyes upon, turning Patrick Rooney upon a spit. You can't wonder at my grandfather thinking and not minding the fire. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. It's the death of you I'll be. And with that what did my grandfather see, but Patrick unslinging himself from the spit, and his eyes glared and his teeth glistened. Illustration. It was neither stop nor stay my grandfather made, but out he ran into the night of the wood. It seemed to him there wasn't a stone but was for his stumbling, not a branch but beat his face, not a bramble but tore his skin. And wherever it was clear the rain pelted down and the cold March wind howled along. Glad was he to see a light, and a minute after he was kneeling, dazed, drenched, and bedraggled by the hearthside. The brushwood flamed, and the brushwood crackled, and soon my grandfather began to feel a little warm and dry and easy in his mind. Andrew Coffey. Andrew Coffey. It's hard for a man to jump when he has been through all my grandfather had, but jump he did. And when he looked around, where should he find himself but in the very cabin he had first met Patrick in? Andrew Coffey, tell me a story. Is it a story you want? Said my grandfather as bold as may be, for he was just tired of being frightened. Well, if you can tell me the rights of this one, I'll be thankful. And he told the tale of what had befallen him from first to last that night. The tale was long, and maybe Andrew Coffey was weary. It's asleep he must have fallen, for when he awoke he lay on the hillside, under the open heavens, and his horse grazed at his side. Illustration. I will tell you a story about the wren. There was once a farmer who was seeking a servant, and the wren met him and said, "What are you seeking?" "I am seeking a servant," said the farmer to the wren. "Will you take me?" said the wren. You poor creature, what good would you do?" "Try me," said the wren. So he engaged him, and the first work he set him to do was threshing. In the barn. The wren threshed. What did he thresh with? Why, a flail. To be sure, and he knocked off one grain. A mouse came out and she eats that. "I'll trouble you not to do that again," said the wren. He struck again, and he struck off 2 grains. Out came the mouse and she eats them. So they arranged a contest to see who was strongest. And the wren brings his 12 birds, and the mouse her tribe. "You have your tribe with you," said the wren. "As well as yourself," said the mouse, and she struck out her leg proudly. But the wren broke it with his flail, and there was a pitched battle on a set day. When every creature and bird was gathering to battle, the son of the king of Tethertown said that he would go to see the battle, and that he would bring sure word home to his father the king, who would be king of the creatures this year. The battle was over before he arrived. All but one fight, between a great black raven and a snake. The snake was twined about the raven's neck, and the raven held the snake's throat in his beak, and it seemed as if the snake would get the victory over the raven. When the king's son saw this, he helped the raven, and with one blow takes the head off the snake. When the raven had taken breath, and saw that the snake was dead, he said, "For thy kindness to me this day, I will give thee a sight. Come up now on the root of my 2 wings." The king's son put his hands about the raven before his wings, and before he stopped, he took him over 9 bens, and 9 glens, and 9 mountain moors. "Now," said the raven, "see you that house yonder? Go now to it. It is a sister of mine that makes her dwelling in it, and I will go bail that you are welcome. And if she asks you, were you at the battle of the birds, say you were. And if she asks, did you see anyone like me, say you did, but be sure that you meet me tomorrow morning here, in this place." The king's son got good and right good treatment that night. Meat of each meat, drink of each drink, warm water to his feet, and a soft bed for his limbs. On the next day the raven gave him the same sight over 6 bens, and 6 glens, and 6 mountain moors. They saw a bothy far off, but though far off, they were soon there. He got good treatment this night, as before, plenty of meat and drink, and warm water to his feet, and a soft bed to his limbs, and on the next day it was the same thing, over 3 bens, and 3 glens, and 3 mountain moors. On the 3rd morning, instead of seeing the raven as at the other times, who should meet him but the handsomest lad he ever saw, with gold rings in his hair, with a bundle in his hand. The king's son asked this lad if he had seen a big black raven. Said the lad to him, "You will never see the raven again, for I am that raven. I was put under spells by a bad druid, it was meeting you that loosed me, and for that you shall get this bundle." "Now," said the lad, "you must turn back on the selfsame steps, and lie a night in each house as before, but you must not loose the bundle which I gave ye, till in the place where you would most wish to dwell." The king's son turned his back to the lad, and his face to his father's house, and he got lodging from the raven's sisters, just as he got it when going forward. When he was nearing his father's house, he was going through a close wood. It seemed to him that the bundle was growing heavy, and he thought he would look what was in it. When he loosed the bundle he was astonished. In a twinkling he sees the very grandest place he ever saw. A great castle, and an orchard. About the castle, in which was every kind of fruit and herb. He stood, full of wonder and regret for having loosed the bundle, for it was not in his power to put it back again, and he would have wished this pretty place to be in the pretty little green hollow that was opposite his father's house, but he looked up and saw a great giant coming towards him. "Bad south the place where you have built the house, king's son," says the giant. "Yes, but it is not here I would wish it to be, though it happens to be here by mishap," says the king's son. "What's the reward for putting it back in the bundle as it was before?" "What's the reward you would ask," says the king's son. "That you will give me the first son you have when he is 7 years of age," says the giant. "If I have a son you shall have him," said the king's son. In a twinkling the giant put each garden, and orchard, and castle in the bundle as they were before. "Now," says the giant, "take your own road, and I will take mine, but mind your promise, and if you forget I will remember." The king's son took to the road, and at the end of a few days he reached the place he was fondest of. He loosed the bundle, and the castle was just as it was before. And when he opened the castle door, he sees the handsomest maiden he ever cast eye upon. "Advance, king's son," said the pretty maid, "everything is in order for you, if you will marry me this very day." "It's I that am willing," said the king's son. And on the same day they married. But at the end of a day and 7 years, who should be seen coming to the castle but the giant? The king's son was reminded of his promise to the giant, until now he had not told his promise to the queen. "Leave the matter between me and the giant," says the queen. "Turn out your son," says the giant, "mind your promise." "You shall have him," says the king, when his mother puts him in order for his journey. The queen dressed up the cook's son, and she gave him to the giant by the hand. The giant went away with him, but he had not gone far when he put a rod in the hand of the little laddie. The giant asked him, "If thy father had that rod, what would he do with it?" "If my father had that rod he would beat the dogs and the cats, so that they shouldn't be going near the king's meat," said the little laddie. "Thou art he the cook's son," said the giant. He catches him by the 2 small ankles and knocks him against the stone that was beside him. The giant turned back to the castle in rage and madness, and he said that if they did not send out the king's son to him, the highest stone of the castle would be the lowest. Said the queen to the king, "We'll try it yet, the butler's son is of the same age as our son." She dressed up the butler's son, and she gives him to the giant by the hand. The giant had not gone far when he put the rod in his hand. "If thy father had that rod," says the giant, "what would he do with it?" "He would beat the dogs and the cats when they would be coming near the king's bottles and glasses." "Thou art the son of the butler," says the giant, and dashed his brains out too. The giant returned in a very great rage and anger. The earth shook under the soles of his feet, and the castle shook and all that was in it. "Out here with thy son," says the giant, "or in a twinkling the stone that is highest in the dwelling will be the lowest." So they had to give the king's son to the giant. When they were gone a little bit from the earth, the giant showed him the rod that was in his hand and said, "What would thy father do with this rod if he had it?" The king's son said, "My father has a braver rod than that." And the giant asked him, "Where is thy father when he has that brave rod?" And the king's son said, "He will be sitting in his kingly chair." Then the giant understood that he had the right one. The giant took him to his own house, and he reared him as his own son. On a day of days when the giant was from home, the lad heard the sweetest music he ever heard in a room at the top of the giant's house. At a glance he saw the finest face he had ever seen. She beckoned to him to come a bit nearer to her, and she said her name was Auburn Mary, but she told him to go this time, but to be sure to be at the same place about that dead midnight. And as he promised he did. The giant's daughter was at his side in a twinkling, and she said, "Tomorrow you will get the choice of my two sisters to marry, but say that you will not take either, but me. My father wants me to marry the son of the king of the Green City, but I don't like him." On the morrow the giant took out his 3 daughters. And he said, "Now, son of the king of Tethertown, thou hast not lost by living with me so long. Thou wilt get to wife one of the 2 eldest of my daughters, and with her leave to go home with her the day after the wedding. If you will give me this pretty little one," says the king's son, "I will take you at your word." The giant's wrath kindled, and he said, "Before thou getst her thou must do the 3 things that I ask thee to do." "Say on," says the king's son. The giant took him to the byre. "Now," says the giant, 100 cattle are stabled here, and it has not been cleansed for 7 years. I am going from home today, and if this byre is not cleaned before night comes, so clean that a golden apple will run from end to end of it, not only thou shalt not get my daughter, but 'tis only a drink of thy fresh, goodly, beautiful blood that will quench my thirst this night." He begins cleaning the byre, but he might just as well keep bailing the great ocean. After midday, when sweat was blinding him, the giant's youngest daughter came where he was, and she said to him, "You are being punished, king's son." "I am that," says the king's son. "Come over," says Auburn Mary, "and lay down your weariness." "I will do that," says he, "there is but death awaiting me, at any rate." He sat down near her. He was so tired that he fell asleep beside her. When he awoke, the giant's daughter was not to be seen. But the byre was so well cleaned that a golden apple would run from end to end of it and raise no stain. In comes the giant, and he said, "Hast thou cleaned the byre, king's son?" "I have cleaned it," says he. "Somebody cleaned it," says the giant. "You did not clean it, at all events," said the king's son. "Well, well," says the giant, "since thou wert so active today, thou wilt get to this time tomorrow to thatch this byre with birds down from birds with no 2 feathers of one color." The king's son was on foot before the sun. He caught up his bow and his quiver of arrows to kill the birds. He took to the moors, but if he did, the birds were not so easy to take. He was running after them till the sweat was blinding him. About midday who should come but Auburn Mary. "You are exhausting yourself, king's son," says she. "I am," said he. "There fell but these 2 blackbirds, and both of one color. Come over and lay down your weariness on this pretty hillock," says the giant's daughter. "It's I am willing," said he. He thought she would aid him this time, too, and he sat down near her. And he was not long there till he fell asleep. When he awoke, Auburn Mary was gone. He thought he would go back to the house, and he sees the byre thatched with feathers. When the giant came home, he said, "Hast thou thatched the byre, king's son?" "I thatched it," says he. "Somebody thatched it," says the giant. "You did not thatch it," says the king's son. "Yes, yes," says the giant. "Now," says the giant, "there is a fir tree beside that lock down there, and there is a magpie's nest in its top. The eggs thou wilt find in the nest. I must have them for my first meal. Not one must be burst or broken, and there are 5 in the nest." Early in the morning the king's son went where the tree was, and that tree was not hard to hit upon. Its match was not in the whole wood. From the foot to the first branch was 500 feet. The king's son was going all round the tree. She came who was always bringing help to him. You are losing the skin of your hands and feet. ACH. I am, says he. I am no sooner up than down. This is no time for stopping, says the giant's daughter. Now you must kill me, strip the flesh from my bones, take all those bones apart, and use them as steps for climbing the tree. When you are climbing the tree, they will stick to the glass as if they had grown out of it, but when you are coming down, and have put your foot on each one, they will drop into your hand when you touch them. Be sure and stand on each bone, leave none untouched, if you do, it will stay behind. Put all my flesh into this clean cloth by the side of the spring at the roots of the tree. When you come to the earth, arrange my bones together, put the flesh over them, sprinkle it with water from the spring, and I shall be alive before you. But don't forget a bone of me on the tree. Illustration: the giant's daughter bids the birds watch her father's fire. How could I kill you, asked the king's son, after what you have done for me? If you won't obey, you and I are done for, said Auburn Mary. You must climb the tree, or we are lost, and to climb the tree you must do as I say. The king's son obeyed. He killed Auburn Mary, cut the flesh from her body, and unjointed the bones, as she had told him. As he went up, the king's son put the bones of Auburn Mary's body against the side of the tree, using them as steps, till he came under the nest and stood on the last bone. Then he took the eggs, and coming down, put his foot on every bone. Then took it with him, till he came to the last bone, which was so near the ground that he failed to touch it with his foot. He now placed all the bones of Auburn Mary in order again at the side of the spring, put the flesh on them, sprinkled it with water from the spring. She rose up before him, and said, "Didn't I tell you not to leave a bone of my body without stepping on it? Now I am lame for life. You left my little finger on the tree without touching it, and I have but 9 fingers. Now," says she, "go home with the eggs quickly, and you will get me to marry tonight if you can know me. I and my 2 sisters will be arrayed in the same garments, and made like each other, but look at me. When my father says, 'Go to thy wife, king's son,' and you will see a hand without a little finger." He gave the eggs to the giant. "Yes, yes," said the giant, "be making ready for your marriage." Then, indeed, there was a wedding, and it was a wedding. Giants and gentlemen, and the son of the king of the green city was in the midst of them. They were married, and the dancing began. That was a dance. The giant's house was shaking from top to bottom. But bedtime came, and the giant said, "It is time for thee to go to rest, son of the king of Tethertown, choose thy bride to take with thee from amidst those." She put out the hand off which the little finger was, and he caught her by the hand. "Thou hast aimed well this time too, but there is no knowing but we may meet thee another way," said the giant. But to rest they went. "Now," says she, "sleep not, or else you are a dead man. We must fly quick, quick, or for certain my father will kill you." Out they went, and on the blue-gray filly in the stable they mounted. "Stop a while," says she, "and I will play a trick to the old hero." She jumped in, and cut an apple into 9 shares, and she put 2 shares at the head of the bed, and 2 shares at the foot of the bed, and 2 shares at the door of the kitchen, and 2 shares at the big door, and 1 outside the house. The giant awoke and called, "Are you asleep?" "Not yet," said the apple that was at the head of the bed. At the end of a while he called again. "Not yet," said the apple that was at the foot of the bed. A while after this he called again, "Are you asleep?" "Not yet," said the apple at the kitchen door. The giant called again. The apple that was at the big door answered. "You are now going far from me," says the giant. "Not yet," says the apple that was outside the house. "You are flying," says the giant. The giant jumped on his feet, and to the bed he went, but it was cold empty. "My own daughter's tricks are trying me," said the giant. "Here's after them," says he. At the mouth of the day, the giant's daughter said that her father's breath was burning her back. "Put your hand, quick," said she, "in the ear of the grey filly, and whatever you find in it, throw it behind us." "There is a twig of sloe tree," said he. "Throw it behind us," said she. No sooner did he that, than there were 20 miles of blackthorn wood, so thick that scarce a weasel could go through it. The giant came headlong, and there he is fleecing his head and neck in the thorns. "My own daughter's tricks are here as before," said the giant, "but if I had my own big axe and wood knife here, I would not be long making a way through this." He went home for the big axe and the wood knife, and sure he was not long on his journey, and he was the boy behind the big axe. He was not long making a way through the blackthorn. "I will leave the axe and the wood knife here till I return," says he. "If you leave 'em, said a hoodie that was in a tree. "We'll steal 'em, steal 'em." "If you will do that," says the giant, "I must take them home." He returned home and left them at the house. At the heat of day the giant's daughter felt her father's breath burning her back. "Put your finger in the filly's ear, and throw behind whatever you find in it." He got a splinter of grey stone, and in a twinkling there were 20 miles, by breadth and height, of great grey rock behind them. The giant came full pelt, but past the rock he could not go. "The tricks of my own daughter are the hardest things that ever met me," says the giant, "but if I had my lever and my mighty mattock, I would not be long in making my way through this rock also." There was no help for it, but to turn the chase for them, and he was the boy to split the stones. He was not long in making a road through the rock. "I will leave the tools here, and I will return no more." "If you leave 'em, says the hoodie, "we will steal 'em." "Steal 'em. Do that if you will, there is no time to go back." At the time of breaking the watch, the giant's daughter said that she felt her father's breath burning her back. "Look in the filly's ear, king's son, or else we are lost." He did so, and it was a bladder of water that was in her ear this time. He threw it behind him and there was a fresh water lock, 20 miles in length and breadth, behind them. The giant came on, but with the speed he had on him, he was in the middle of the lock, and he went under, and he rose no more. On the next day the young companions were come in sight of his father's house. "Now," says she, "my father is drowned, and he won't trouble us any more, but before we go further," says she, "go you to your father's house, and tell that you have the likes of me, but let neither man nor creature kiss you, for if you do, you will not remember that you have ever seen me." Every one he met gave him welcome and luck, and he charged his father and mother not to kiss him, but as mishap was to be, an old greyhound was indoors, and she knew him, and jumped up to his mouth, and after that he did not remember the giant's daughter. She was sitting at the well's side as he left her, but the king's son was not coming. In the mouth of night she climbed up into a tree of oak that was beside the well, and she lay in the fork of that tree all night. A shoemaker had a house near the well, and about midday on the morrow, the shoemaker asked his wife to go for a drink for him out of the well. When the shoemaker's wife reached the well, and when she saw the shadow of her that was in the tree, thinking it was her own shadow, and she never thought till now that she was so handsome, she gave a cast to the dish that was in her hand, and it was broken on the ground, and she took herself to the house without vessel or water. "Where is the water, wife?" said the shoemaker. "You shambling, contemptible old carle, without grace, I have stayed too long your water and would thrall. I think, wife, that you have turned crazy. Go you, daughter, quickly, and fetch a drink for your father." His daughter went, and in the same way so it happened to her. She never thought till now that she was so lovable, and she took herself home. Up with the drink, said her father. You homespun shoe Carl, do you think I am fit to be your thrall? The poor shoemaker thought that they had taken a turn in their understandings, and he went himself to the well. He saw the shadow of the maiden in the well, and he looked up to the tree, and he sees the finest woman he ever saw. Your seat is wavering, but your face is fair, said the shoemaker. Come down, for there is need of you for a short while at my house. The shoemaker understood that this was the shadow that had driven his people mad. The shoemaker took her to his house, and he said that he had but a poor bothy, but that she should get a share of all that was in it. One day, the shoemaker had shoes ready, for on that very day the king's son was to be married. The shoemaker was going to the castle with the shoes of the young people, and the girl said to the shoemaker, I would like to get a sight of the king's son before he marries. Come with me, says the shoemaker, I am well acquainted with the servants at the castle, and you shall get a sight of the king's son. And all the company. And when the gentles saw the pretty woman that was here, they took her to the wedding room, and they filled for her a glass of wine. When she was going to drink what was in it, a flame went up out of the glass, and a golden pigeon and a silver pigeon sprang out of it. They were flying about when 3 grains of barley fell on the floor. The silver pigeon sprang, and ate that up. Said the golden pigeon to him, if you remembered when I cleared the byre, you would not eat that without giving me a share. Again there fell 3 other grains of barley, and the silver pigeon sprang, and ate that up as before. If you remembered when I thatched the byre, you would not eat that without giving me my share, says the golden pigeon. 3 other grains fall, and the silver pigeon sprang, and ate that up. If you remembered when I harried the magpie's nest, you would not eat that without giving me my share, says the golden pigeon. I lost my little finger bringing it down, and I want it still. The king's son minded, and he knew who it was that was before him. Well, said the king's son to the guests at the feast, when I was a little younger than I am now, I lost the key of a casket that I had. I had a new key made, but after it was brought to me I found the old one. Now, I'll leave it to anyone here to tell me what I am to do. Which of the keys should I keep? My advice to you, said one of the guests, is to keep the old key. For it fits the lock better, and you're more used to it. Then the king's son stood up and said, I thank you for a wise advice and an honest word. This is my bride, the daughter of the giant who saved my life at the risk of her own. I'll have her and no other woman. So the king's son married Auburn Mary, and the wedding lasted long, and all were happy. But all I got was butter on a live coal, porridge in a basket, and paper shoes for my feet, and they sent me for water to the stream, and the paper shoes came to an end. Illustration. In Treneguise there is a certain shepherd's cot known by the name of Twtcycymrws because of the strange strife that occurred there. There once lived there a man and his wife, and they had twins whom the woman nursed tenderly. One day she was called away to the house of a neighbor at some distance. She did not much like going and leaving her little ones all alone in a solitary house, especially as she had heard tell of the good folk haunting the neighborhood. Well, she went and came back as soon as she could, but on her way back she was frightened to see some old elves of the blue petticoat crossing her path though it was midday. She rushed home, but found her 2 little ones in the cradle, and everything seemed as it was before. But after a time the good people began to suspect that something was wrong, for the twins didn't grow at all. The man said, they're not ours. The woman said, whose else should they be? And so arose the great strife, so that the neighbors named the cottage after it. It made the woman very sad, so one evening she made up her mind to go and see the wise man of Llanidloes, for he knew everything and would advise her what to do. So she went to Llanidloes and told the case to the wise man. Now there was soon to be a harvest of rye and oats, so the wise man said to her, "When you are getting dinner for the reapers, clear out the shell of a hen's egg and boil some pottage in it, and then take it to the door as if you meant it as a dinner for the reapers. Then listen if the twins say anything. If you hear them speaking of things beyond the understanding of children, go back and take them up and throw them into the waters of Lake Elvin. But if you don't hear anything remarkable, do them no injury." So when the day of the reap came, the woman did all that the wise man ordered, and put the eggshell on the fire and took it off and carried it to the door, and there she stood and listened. Then she heard one of the children say to the other, "Acorn before oak I knew, an egg before a hen, but I never heard of an eggshell brew, a dinner for harvest men." So she went back into the house, seized the children and threw them into the Lyn, and the goblins in their blue trousers came and saved their dwarfs, and the mother had her own children back, and so the great strife ended.